Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku became the hero hunter. If you guys enjoy this movie, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content. And leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story BearfootTruck from fan fiction. So let's start the video. 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐴𝐲. We live in a superhuman society, with about 80% of the population possessing some sort of uncanny ability known as a quirk. In the early days of quirks, cities looked like scenes out of comic books, swirling with chaos and confusion. Then, a new profession emerged from this maelstrom of decay, that of pro heroes. I used to be quirkless, but then, one fateful day, I received a power like no other. However, this isn't the story of how I became the world's greatest hero. Rather, it's a dark yet uplifting tale of how I made people believe in heroes again. It was another ordinary summer day in New York City. Well, as about as ordinary as it could get in the Big Apple. Pro heroes of all stripes were working hard to make sure that civilians could go about their daily business without being hurt by villains. And perhaps no heroes were working harder than those working to stop a robbery at Apple Bank. More precisely, the branch on East 42nd Street in Manhattan's Murray Hill neighborhood. They'd managed to hold the villains back for now, but it was clear that the heroes were losing, and the villains made sure to rub this in their face. "Give up, heroes," said a villain who was using his quirk to shoot asphalt at the heroes and police. "Another minute or two and we're out of here." Even the heroes were acknowledging that the situation was pretty shaky. "I don't know how much longer I can hold them back," said Fumihito Matsumura, better known as Mr. Brave. "We have to try," said Ken Takagi, better known as Rock Lock. "We've been hunting these guys for too long to give up now." "I'm doing my best," said Chiyo 𝗬𝗵𝗲. Fortunately for 𝗬𝗵𝗲, she and her fellow pros would get their wish when. "Have no fear, I am here." Everyone got quite the shock when the pro of all pros showed up. None other than Izuko Midoriya, better known as the symbol of peace, Deku, as was trademark for her. She'd shown up to save the day with a smile on her face, much to the villain's chagrin. "No, it can't be. Come on, guys, let's give up while we still can. Forget you, I'm getting out of here one way or another." A villain who could materialize steel I-beams attempted to smash his way out of the situation. However, Detroit Smash. Deku landed a decisive blow on the villain's chest after dodging an attack. The asphalt villain and the third villain, who could shoot lava, also attempted to get a piece of Deku, but she followed up with a Delaware Smash and then a St. Louis Smash, putting the villains out of commission. She then restrained them with Black Whip as her fellow heroes, and the NYPD cheered for her. "We love you, Deku," said 𝗬𝗵𝗲. "You're the best," said an NYPD officer. "Thanks a million," said Mr. Brave. Deku waved at everyone, while specially equipped members of the NYPD's emergency service unit closed in to secure the villains for transport. "You're all very welcome," said Deku. "It's always an honor." No sooner had Deku done her job than members of the press had swarmed her. "Deku, do you have anything to say about this?" said a reporter for ABC7 New York. "What was it like facing off against some of the most dangerous villains?" said a reporter for PIX11. "How do you keep up with this wave of crime?" said a reporter for the New York Times. Deku made a downwards pushing motion while sweating and smiling nervously. "Hey, one at a time, please. All I have to say about this is that I'm grateful that I could assist my fellow heroes and the members of the NYPD. And I'll do my best to keep making sure that all of you can walk the streets with smiles on your faces." Just like that, Deku used Black Whip to swing out of there in a manner reminiscent of Spider-Man. Relieved that she'd managed to escape the media-feeding frenzy. Having escaped the press, Deku went to her favorite hangout, Variety Coffee Roasters, a coffee shop in the Upper East Side, part of a local chain of 8 coffee shops that began with a location in Williamsburg in 2008. Variety Coffee Roasters was known for its nutty, chocolatey roasts, something that greatly appealed to Deku's palate. However, the coffee wasn't the primary reason why this was her favorite hangout, nor was the fact that this particular coffee shop just a couple of blocks away from Central Park. Rather, there was someone in particular she looked forward to seeing. "Good afternoon, young Midoriya." "All Might." Deku ran over to Toshinori Yagi, aka All Might, the former symbol of peace and consequently the former #1 hero, and gave him a big hug, which he gladly returned. She owed a lot to this man, for not only was he the one who passed one for all down to her, but in addition to training her to handle the immense power, he was the father figure she never had in her life. Overall, he gave her something to look forward to when hero work got rough. Soon enough, she let go, but not without a smile on her face. "How are you doing today?" said All Might. "Not too bad. I mean, when you can save the world with a smile on your face, then that's all that matters, right? Anyways, how are you doing? Things could be better, but then again, things could be way worse. I'm just happy to see you." "Likewise. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go get my usual No sooner had Deeku approached the counter than the barista, a short black woman of average build, had given the green bean her usual, a coffee with the usual amount of cream and extra sugar. "Thank you very much, Kendra." Deeku used her phone to pay for her coffee. "You're welcome, Deeku." Deeku returned to where All Might was sitting. "So, anything exciting today?" asked All Might. Aside from rescuing 4 children from a burning building in New Rochelle, stopping a fuel tanker explosion in Yonkers, and foiling a bank robbery in Murray Hill, not too much has happened today. Deeku took a sip of her coffee. "Though I will admit, the constant media attention has been tiring. I don't know how you ever put up with it." All Might put down his coffee. "I know it's not easy being the center of everyone's attention. But you're doing a great job. What worked for me was just being as friendly as possible. Of course, it also helped that I had the type of personality that thrived on attention. That might have worked for you, but you know me, I'm different. I just want to have a safe place where I can go at the end of the day and unwind from the constant stress of being the world's greatest hero." Deeku took another sip of her coffee. All Might put a hand on Deeku's shoulder. "I understand. However, you do realize that as the world's greatest hero, you'll have to expect the unexpected, right? It's highly likely that a villain could find out where you live, destroy your home, and force you to live elsewhere." Deeku gently slammed her cup on the table. "Then that's a risk I'm willing to take if it means keeping some of my sanity in this world." All Might nodded and smiled. "I see there's no changing your mind. Well, I'm fine with your decision, and I'll still be here if you need to talk. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to use the bathroom." All Might got up from his seat and headed for the bathroom. To kill some time, Deeku pulled out her phone and surfed the World Heroes Forum, a forum that was not only meant for pro heroes to share intelligence, tips, and tricks, but for the general public to interact with and discuss their favorite heroes. Thus far, most of the threads she'd encountered were the usual ones about recent villain sightings or people geeking out over their favorite heroes. But then a thread titled "How Could a Pro Do This?" caught her eye, so she opened it. In this particular thread, a user named RockCruise84 claimed that a hero known as Firepower had been abusing his powers by roughing up civilians thought to be in league with a villain known as 𝐒𝐻𝐢𝐴𝐴𝐻. Naturally, the thread sparked a real flame war, with various people defending or criticizing Firepower. After going through a bunch of the natter, she found one post by a user named 𝐿𝐻𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 Curious, 𝗧𝐿 opened the link, and sure enough, it showed Firepower roughly interrogating somebody. The green bean didn't want to believe that such a thing was happening, but the footage was as clear as day, and her observant eyes showed no incorrect details in the costume, so no doubt it was Firepower. After backing out of that thread feeling a bit sick in her stomach, things only got worse when 𝗧𝐿 found more such threads, with titles such as I Used to Believe in Heroes, Shocking Video of Hero Punching Cashier, and This Guy Should Be a Villain. 𝗧𝐿 shook her head in disbelief. All her life, she'd been taught that heroes were good people, willing to lay their lives on the line to defend the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. While this wasn't her first time hearing about a hero who'd gone bad, it seemed to her like she was just now hearing about this in greater numbers, and it was way too difficult for her to process. Not helping was a young couple in one corner discussing how a hero named Spiker had allegedly been receiving payments from a corrupt alderman in Chicago to overlook a drug distribution ring. "Hey Midoriya." 𝗧𝐿 didn't even respond when All Might got back. "Midoriya, are you okay?" 𝗧𝐿 shook her head a bit and blinked. "Oh, why yeah, I'm fine. I just spaced out there for a second." All Might smiled. "Well, have some more coffee, it'll keep you sharp." 𝗧𝐿 did her best to put a smile on her face. After stopping a guerrilla villain from destroying the Empire State Building and engaging in an autograph signing with some adoring fans, 𝗧𝐿 headed home. In contrast to how people would envision the #1 hero living, her residence was a modest apartment on 238th Street in the Kingsbridge neighborhood, in the northern part of the Bronx. She could pick it out from at least a mile away because she saw her car parked there, a green-gold 1973 Chevy Caprice sedan with black vinyl roof. Much to her good fortune, 𝗧𝐿's apartment was on the top floor of the building. Even though it was modest in size, it was quite heavily decorated with all manner of All Might merchandise, including a one-off poster from after the Vinegar River incident. For supper, 𝗧𝐿 cooked her favorite, katsudon. That is, a Japanese-style fried pork cutlet over a bed of rice. To wash it down, she had a can of Coke. After supper, 𝗧𝐿 crashed on her leather couch, pulled out her phone and recorded one of her daily audio logs. Tuesday, July 23, 2024, it was hot in New York. Today was pretty much like any other day that I go through as a pro hero. I stopped a bank robbery, stopped a villain from destroying the Empire State Building, rescued people from a burning apartment, and engaged in an autograph signing with some adoring fans. Now, I didn't become a hero for the fame, but it makes me happy that people are happy because of me. What made me really happy, though, was getting to see All Might again. He'll always be my favorite person ever. The only thing that really brought down the experience was when I uncovered rumors of other pro heroes abusing their powers. I don't want to believe it, but at the same time, if these rumors are true, I can't stand idly by and let innocent people suffer. Still, I won't let those rumors trouble me. They are rumors after all, right? After recording her log, 𝗧𝐿 turned on her TV, fired up her PS5 and put on Brutal Doom, more precisely the first Doom. While she'd beaten all the Doom games several times over, they never got any older no matter how many times she played them. However, while playing the game, she kept having recurring thoughts about all that stuff she'd read and heard about heroes abusing their powers. Surely, there couldn't be an entire legion of heroes using their status as an excuse to violate people's rights. Could there? Eventually, after playing the game for so long, 𝗧𝗪 shut it off and also turned off her TV. She decided that getting out of the house was in order. 𝗧𝗪's choice of getting out was a restaurant in Soho on Prince Street called 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏. An establishment by that name had allegedly been operating since the 1940s and closed down in 2014, only to reopen with somewhat more upscale offerings. For this occasion, she had dressed up in a Vanson villainous leather jacket over a black tank top, tight blue jeans and knee-high high-heel leather boots. Fortunately for her, there was an open seat at the bar. Immediately, one of the bartenders, a skinny brunette of average height, approached her. "Hi, what'll it be?" asked the bartender. "Just a Coke, please." The bartender grabbed a glass, put some ice in it and poured some Coke in it using one of the nozzles. 𝗧𝗪 reached for her purse in an attempt to pay for the drink, but another guy was quicker on the draw with some cash. She turned to see who'd been kind enough to pay for her beverage, a tall guy with short, curly black hair. "Oh, thank you," said 𝗧𝗪. "You're welcome." 𝗧𝗪 then dropped her jaw and froze when she came to the realization about who this guy was. "Hey, I know you. You're Tommy Waters, better known to the general public as Captain Famous. You look quite familiar yourself. I'm Izuko Midoriya, but the whole world knows me as 𝗧𝗪." Captain Famous smiled. "You're the symbol of peace. God, it's so nice to meet you. I don't know what to say." 𝗧𝗪 smiled. "The pleasure is all mine." 𝗧𝗪 and Captain Famous shook hands with each other. "So 𝗧𝗪, what brought you here tonight?" "Oh, I just needed to relax after a long day of hero work. Don't get me wrong, I love my job, but the constant media attention and never-ending stream of incidents gets tiring, if you understand." "Oh, I understand. How? The media wants a piece of me on a regular basis." Captain Famous took a sip of his beer. 𝗧𝗪 put down her Coke. "Well, with a name like Captain Famous, I suppose it's to be expected." Captain Famous laughed. "It got me there. By the way, have I ever told you how much I admire your famous smile? Really, I don't know how you do it, but seeing you out there fighting crime, saving people and doing it all with a smile on your face ... it gives me hope for the future of this world, you know." 𝗧𝗪 smiled. "Well, I'm glad I can help uplift a fellow hero. It's not always easy to smile in the face of extreme adversity, but if I can make even just one person happy because of my actions, then I feel that I've done my job." Captain Famous nodded. "Interesting way of looking at it. Enough about me now. What made you want to become a hero?" "I remember when I was a kid, I saw All Might on TV and said that I wanted to be just like him. I collected every single piece of All Might merchandise I could get my hands on, studied really hard in school and pushed myself to my absolute limits in training exercises. I'll probably never be as good as he was, but I'm happy with what I got so far." 𝗧𝗪 put a hand on Captain Famous' shoulder. "You don't have to be as good as All Might to be a great hero. As long as you have a noble spirit and are always willing to do the right thing, then you can be one of the world's greatest heroes." Captain Famous smiled. "𝗧𝗪, I may have just met you, but I like you. You're a really good person, you know that." 𝗧𝗪 giggled. "I try to be." 𝗧𝗪 and Captain Famous sat there, looking deeply into each other's eyes. Even if 𝗧𝗪 had just met the guy, she already felt quite the connection with him. While dating wasn't a huge priority for her as a hero, she felt as though she had enough in common with Captain Famous that there just might be something between the two. After a couple more drinks, 𝗧𝗪 and Captain Famous exited the bar together. "Hey 𝗧𝗪, mind walking back to my place with me?" 𝗧𝗪 raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure about that? Relax. All we're doing is walking there. You don't have to come inside with me." "Okay." 𝗧𝗪 and Captain Famous took a walk down Prince Street. As they walked into the poorly lit street, 𝗧𝗪's instincts were telling her that something was off and that this was a very bad idea. Knowing that this could possibly lead nowhere good, she spoke up. "Captain Famous, will you excuse me? I just remembered that a friend wanted to meet me later tonight." "Relax, we got all night. Now come on, let's keep walking." "I really can't, I'm sorry." "Good night, Captain Famous." 𝗧𝗪 attempted to walk away, but Captain Famous grabbed her by the neck and shoved her against the wall. Tommy Captain Famous Waters, quirk, fame, gets more powerful the more famous he becomes. 𝗧𝗪 attempted to pry herself free of Captain Famous' grip, but he was far too strong even for her. "What are you doing?" cried 𝗧𝗪. "Shut up." Just shut up and take it. Wait, no, 𝗵𝗃 forcefully kissed 𝗧𝗪, who attempted to push him away, but again, it was no use. She slapped him in the face and bit his lip, which caused him to pull away, if only for a brief moment. You're a real fighter, huh? What an animal. 𝗧𝗪 was forming tears in her eyes. Please, let me go. Baby, it's in your nature. Just let me liberate ya. No, I won't. Come on, I know you want it. You're a good girl. Can't let it get past me. 𝗵𝗃 knelt down before 𝗧𝗪 and started undoing her belt. 𝗧𝗪 tried her best to do something, but she had frozen up, and with every passing second, it seemed as though she was doomed. No, anything but that. Don't ... just ... DONT. Unconsciously, 𝗧𝗪 activated Black Whip and grabbed 𝗵𝗃, whose power couldn't even match this. The dark energy tendril turned him upside down and repeatedly slammed him headfirst into the pavement, while the green bean could only watch with shock. After what seemed like an eternity, Black Whip let go of 𝗵𝗃, who dropped to the street with a sickening thud. After being frozen with horror for just a moment more, 𝗧𝗪 closed her pants back up, rushed over to 𝗵𝗃 and put her index and middle fingers on his neck. Doing so revealed that he had no pulse. I killed him, not wanting to get caught. 𝗧𝗪 ran away and used Black Whip to help her get back home. Back home, 𝗧𝗪 curled up on her bed and cried as she hugged her pillow. In that moment, many thoughts were racing through her head, wondering if there was anything she should have done differently, wondering why she wasn't strong enough to overpower 𝗵𝗃 without the use of Black Whip, and just generally feeling as though the whole thing was her fault. Here she was, the world's greatest hero, and yet she felt as though she had no one to play hero to her when she needed somebody. While it had been said that crying helped people feel better afterwards, all this was doing was making her feel even more messed up. This was the worst she'd ever felt in her life, and she wondered how she could even get over this, if at all. 𝗧𝗪 did stop crying eventually, though, and the thoughts of sadness and worthlessness were replaced by those of anger and determination. 𝗧𝗪 got up a bit later than usual because she slept like crap last night. Nevertheless, she had enough energy to get out of bed and fix herself breakfast. Even after having a cup of sencha green tea and revitalizing her mouth with some minty toothpaste, she still felt a bit groggy, so she decided to take a day off from hero work. Because she didn't feel like going anywhere, she dressed very simply, wearing nothing but an all-white t-shirt and a white pair of panties. After doing whatever she needed to do in the morning, 𝗧𝗪 curled up on the couch and turned on the TV, which was tuned into ABC 7, now playing a news program. Good morning, everyone, said anchorwoman Cheyenne Smith, a black woman with shoulder-length hair. In today's top news story, Tommy Waters, better known as the pro-hero 𝗵𝗃, was found dead early this morning in Soho. Waters, 42 years old, was perhaps best known for stopping the notorious villain Destro, leader of the Meta Liberation Army. Police refused to speculate on the exact circumstances of his death, but are treating it as a murder. Meanwhile, people all around the world are mourning his death. The video feed switched to an interview with a guy named George Chu. I remember 𝗵𝗃 very well. He saved me and my family from the League of Villains, and it's sad that he's gone because he was such a great hero. 𝗧𝗪 shut off the TV in disgust, thought 𝗧𝗪. After turning off the TV, 𝗧𝗪 fired up her laptop and opened up the official website for the government of New York City. After going through a couple of links, she found what she was looking for, an application for founding New Hero Agency. While she wouldn't have minded going to fill out an application in person, she appreciated the ability to do it online, from the convenience of her own home. The application consisted of standard questions such as name, address, date of birth, contact information, and social security number. But it also consisted of more hero-specific questions such as hero name, her reason for founding the agency, and it required her to attach sufficient documentation of her activities as a hero. While this took some time, she felt it was worth it. Once she submitted her application, she received a message thanking her for her application and telling her that her application would be reviewed and that she'd have her answer within the week. After submitting her application, 𝗧𝗪 decided to browse the internet, going to the World Heroes Forum first. Unsurprisingly, a lot of the recent threads were about 𝗵𝗃, many mourning his untimely death, but more than a few claiming that he'd committed some abusive and uncouth acts. Even if she was disgusted that people were treating him as a god, it at least gave her some sense of relief knowing that she wasn't the only one who'd had bad experiences with him. Soon enough, reading about 𝗵𝗃 reminded 𝗧𝗪 too much about what had happened last night, so she decided to play some video games. However, those got boring quickly, and not knowing what else to do, she decided screw it and went out to do some hero work. Even this felt rather empty, knowing that there were heroes out there behaving in a less than heroic manner. The only thing that gave 𝗧𝗪 any sense of relief was seeing All Might at Variety Coffee Roasters. And he took notice of her disposition. Midoriya, you don't seem too well. Is everything okay? 𝗧𝗪 shook her head. No, it's not. Why, what's the matter? 𝗧𝗪 leaned closer to All Might. Can you keep a secret? Of course, 𝗧𝐭 whispered to All Might. Last night, I met Captain Famous at a bar. We seemed to hit it off, but after taking a little walk, he tried to rape me and I ended up killing him. 𝗧𝐭 formed tear in her eyes. All Might gasped. That's terrible. Did you report this to anybody? 𝗧𝐭 shook her head. I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable. Besides, who would believe me? All Might put a hand on 𝗧𝐭's shoulder. I believe you, and I promise I'll help out any way I can. 𝗧𝐭 nodded solemnly. Thanks, All Might. Right now, I need to process this my own way. I hope you understand. All Might nodded. I do, and I have faith in you. Once again, thank you. You're welcome. After finishing her coffee and saying bye to All Might, 𝗧𝐭 was exiting the coffee shop when an NYPD sergeant accosted her. Excuse me, 𝗧𝐭. Yes, the mayor wanted you to speak at the funeral of Captain Famous. She figured that maybe it'd give people some hope if another famous hero were there to speak out in support of him. 𝗧𝐭 froze. On one hand, she felt she couldn't sincerely support the man who tried to rape her, but on the other hand, she felt it would be rude to refuse an offer from Mayor 𝗬𝗪, and she also feared that if she spoke up about his heinous act too soon, then it would not only permanently damage her reputation, but also result in mass hysteria. Thus, against her better judgment. All right, I'll do it. Thank you, 𝗧𝐭, said the sergeant. Knew we could count on ya. 𝗧𝐭 put on a fake smile. Inside, though, she was more dead than Captain Famous. The day of Captain Famous' funeral, it was raining in New York. Millions of people, not just from the Big Apple, but around the world, had shown up to pay their respects. Pro-heroes, police officers, firefighters, active duty military personnel, military veterans, even ordinary civilians. A bagpipe band was playing tunes such as The Minstrel Boy. At the Holy Trinity Lutheran Church, Mayor 𝗬𝗪, a middle-aged woman with mid-length, graying feathered hair, stepped up to the podium to give a eulogy for Captain Famous. I may not have been close friends with Captain Famous, but I knew him nevertheless, and based on what I knew about him, he was one of the kindest, most selfless heroes who never let fame go to his head. He was always there to lend a helping hand to people in need, and the world is a lesser place without him. It is my sincere hope that his death will not have been in vain and that heroes everywhere will continue to work hard to fill the void left by his passing, because one hero's loss affects all heroes. Now, I'd like to turn the floor over to the number one pro, 𝗧𝐭. With great reluctance, 𝗧𝐭 stepped up to the podium and gave a brief eulogy. Hi. I didn't really know Captain Famous, but I knew of him, and his death is a tragedy, and I hope no other heroes suffer the way he suffered. 𝗧𝐭 quickly fled from the podium to let the next person step up, much to people's confusion and consternation. After the funeral, 𝗧𝐭 headed straight home and concluded her hero work for the day. All she really did for the rest of the night was play video games. Going to sleep was an ordeal for her because she had a nightmare about what Captain Famous did to her and she woke up crying. All she could really hope for was that her application would be accepted sooner rather than later. Fortunately for 𝗧𝐭, her application was indeed accepted sooner rather than later, so she set up the agency's headquarters in an apartment on East 139th Street in the South Bronx. It wasn't the most ideal location for a hero office, but given the nature of the 𝗧𝐭 agency, she needed to keep the operations as covert as possible. The only things that distinguished this apartment as a hero agency were the mahogany office desk and leather swivel chair that 𝗧𝐭 put in the bedroom. Now her office, plus the swivel chairs set up around the dining room table, the hologram projector set up on said table, and the computer server in one corner. Then, she put out advertisements for her agency, after which she waited and waited and waited. Finally, after waiting for so long, she got an application, and it was from a most unlikely person, Katsuki Bakugo. The world knew him as the explosive murder hero Ground Zero, but she personally knew him as Kaken. While reluctant to take him in because she knew that he'd been kicked out of multiple agencies for his anger issues, she knew that deep down inside, he was a good hero who would never betray anyone. Plus, he was a good friend, so she called him up, only to get his machine. Hi, this is Ground Zero. Leave me a message and get the hell out of here. Then, a female voice said, at the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options. A beep sounded, and 𝗧𝐭 left her message. Hey Kaken, it's 𝗧𝐭. Listen, I got your application, and I'm happy to say that I've accepted it. Please call me back to set up an interview, okay? 𝗧𝐭 hung up and kicked back at her desk. Some minutes later, she heard John Williams' Superman theme, which was her ringtone, so she picked up the phone. Hello. 𝗧𝐭. Hello there, Kaken. What the crap? You actually founded your own hero agency. Despite being taken aback by Kaken's yelling, 𝗧𝐭 maintained her composure. I did, and I'd like to let you know that I've accepted your application. When would you like to come in for an interview? When do you want me? It's up to you. Come in anytime between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. Okay, I'm coming over now, but only because I want to see what a miserable failure this is gonna end up as. Okay then. See you soon. 𝐭𝐚𝐲 hung up, while Deeku waited for him to come in. Soon enough, there was a loud stomping and banging on the door, and she opened it with a smile on her face. Good afternoon, 𝐭𝐴𝐲. What the crap? This is your office. It looks like you took a big-ass shit and called it a hero agency. Deeku frowned. I know it's not much, but I needed a place that the authorities wouldn't suspect. Now please, come in. 𝐭𝐴𝐲 snorted. Fine. 𝐭𝐴𝐲 stomped in. So, why the crap did you found your own agency? And why the crap are we in this shitty-ass building? Here's the thing. Recently, many people have made accusations that heroes have been abusing their powers. The objective of my agency is not only to fight villains, but also to stop heroes who are using their powers for their own selfish ends. 𝐭𝐴𝐲 gave Deeku an incredulous stare. Then, he covered his mouth as he attempted to suppress laughter. Oh god, that sounds so freaking stupid. I knew that you were gonna have some loser-ass idea, but that's the biggest flight of fancy you've ever come up with. I'm outta here. 𝐭𝐴𝐲 turned around and attempted to leave, but Deeku put a hand on his shoulder. Fine. If you want to reject my offer, then leave. Just know this. I know you've been kicked out of multiple agencies for your anger problems, and I'm giving you a second chance not just because you're a great hero, but because you're my friend. If you still want to turn me down, then go ahead. But don't come crying to me if no one else will take you. 𝐭𝐴𝐲 stared at Deeku. He still hated the green bean's guts, but deep down inside, he was a hero, and he had indeed been kicked out of multiple agencies, so the answer was obvious. All right, you got me. I'll join. Deeku smiled. I knew you'd see things my way. Just know this. What? If we get arrested, I'm 𝐒𝐽𝐳𝐾𝐼 in your ass. Deeku chuckled. Don't worry, 𝐭𝐴𝐲. If we do this right, we won't. 𝐒𝐵𝘃. 𝐭𝐴𝐲 turned around to leave. I'll call you when your first day is supposed to begin, said Deeku. 𝐭𝐴𝐲 said nothing else as he walked out the door. Meanwhile, Deeku checked for any other applications and found one from someone named Shoto Todoroki. While she didn't recognize the first name, she knew that a hero named Enji Todoroki, better known as Endeavor, had taken over the mantle of #1 hero from All Might before dying under mysterious circumstances a few years ago, at which point she'd become the #1 hero. Fairly certain that this Shoto Todoroki was related to Endeavor, she decided that it would be an honor to have him working for her, so she called him up. Hello. Hi, is this Shoto Todoroki? Yes. Who am I speaking to? My name is Izuko Midoriya. I received your application, and I am hereby offering you an interview for my agency. When can you come in? Is it all right if I come in right now? Of course. Just give me a little time to prepare. Okay, I will. See you soon, Midoriya. Todoroki hung up, while Deeku awaited him. Soon enough, she heard knocking on the apartment door, so she opened it and got a real eyeful. Standing before her was a muscular, clean-shaven man a few inches taller than her, with white and red hair, white on the right, red on the left, and heterochromic eyes, red on the right, gray on the left. One of his most distinctive features, however, was a red blotch-shaped scar over his left eye. Upon seeing him, Deeku thought he looked very sparkly, and her camera lens seemed to get smeared with Vaseline as she blushed, not really noticing that he too was blushing. Hi, said Deeku. Hi, said the other guy. I'm Shoto Todoroki. Am I in the right place? Why yes, I'm Izuko Midoriya. Come on in. Deeku led Todoroki into the agency's HQ. He looked around at it, finding it unusual that someone would set up shop in a dingy apartment in the South Bronx, but nevertheless honored to be working for such an attractive woman. So why did you found this agency? Asked Todoroki. Well, as the #1 hero, I not only wanted to continue helping others, but the main objective of this agency is to combat heroes who are abusing their powers. Todoroki stroked his chin. That sounds like something I'd be very interested in. Good. I looked over your application, and I noticed you haven't been working for any hero agency in at least a couple of years. I won't ask you to explain the gaps in your employment history, but I'll gladly accept you as a member of my agency if you're willing to uphold our ideals. Owing to what happened to my father, I'll do anything for you. Deeku smiled. Then it's settled. Welcome to the Deeku agency, Todoroki. Todoroki scratched his head. That's it. Of course. I'll call you back when everything's ready. Okay. Very well. Have a nice day, Midoriya. You too. He's so hot. I wasn't prepared for it. After talking with Todoroki, Deeku returned to her desk and checked to see if she'd gotten any more applications. She hadn't, and owing to the fact that it was almost lunchtime, she decided to call a local Chinese restaurant for takeout. As soon as she picked up her phone, it rang again, so she answered it. Hello. Hey, my friend 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗄 told me about this new hero agency in town, and I'd like to join. Okay, I'm on lunch break right now, but you can send in an application online, in person or through the mail. Okay, sounds good. After lunch, Deeku checked for any new applications and found one from a guy named Ijiro Kirishima. Figuring that it was the guy who called her earlier, she called back. Hello. Hi, is this Ijiro Kirishima? Yeah, that's me. I called you, but you were on lunch, remember? 𝗧𝗪𝗧 nodded. I remember. And I hereby accept your application. When can you come in for an interview? Well, I gotta run a couple of errands right now, but I'll be over at 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Sound good? Okay, see you then. See ya. Kirishima hung up. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 tended to her business when she again heard knocking, so she answered the door. Standing there was a muscular man with spiky red hair, matching red eyes and a fanged grin. No doubt Kirishima. Hey, is this the agency I called earlier? 𝗧𝗪𝗧 smiled. This is the 𝗧𝗪𝗧 agency. My name is Izuko Midoriya. And you must be Ijiro Kirishima. That I am. Nice to meet ya. Kirishima gave 𝗧𝗪𝗧 a nice, firm handshake, which she gladly returned. Whoa, for a woman, you got a nice handshake. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 smiled. Thank you. Come on in. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 led Kirishima into the HQ, which he looked at curiously. Pretty unusual digs, said Kirishima. What's this agency all about? So basically, not only will you be fighting crime like other hero agencies, but we have a more important mission to find heroes who are abusing their powers and put a stop to them. Kirishima clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. That sounds like the exact kind of thing I want to do, because my last boss wanted me to kill innocent people, and I wasn't going to take it, so I left, and now I want to kick his ass. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 smiled. Then you're the exact kind of person I want to have working for me. Welcome to the 𝗧𝗪𝗧 agency. Kirishima dropped his jaw. Wait, that's it. I'm hired like that. Of course. Kirishima gave a thumbs up. Oh, hell yeah. When do I begin? I haven't set an exact date yet, and I'm looking for another candidate or two, but I promise I'll call you when everything's ready. Awesome. See ya then. Kirishima gave 𝗧𝗪𝗧 some dap before leaving. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 then checked for more applications and found another one from a guy named Denki Kaminari. Once again, his application checked out, so she called him. Hello. Hi, is this Denki Kaminari? This is. Who am I speaking to? My name is Izuko Midoriya, and I'm the leader of the 𝗧𝗪𝗧 agency. I received your application and would like to have you in for an interview. Cool. What time? That depends. What time do you want to come in? Can I come in right now? You can, but I'm closing soon. All right, I'll be right over. Once again, it hadn't been too long before 𝗧𝗪𝗧 heard knocking on her door, so she opened it and saw a blonde boy with black lightning bolt-like streaks in his shoulder-length hair. Hey, you must be Midoriya, and you must be Kaminari. Come on in. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 led Kaminari in, but he had his scruples about the HQ's location. Why is the agency located here? This looks more like a crack house than a hero agency. I realize it's not the most ideal location for a hero agency, but considering our primary mission, I had to find somewhere that wasn't as noticeable. Kaminari put his index finger up to his chin. And what is our primary mission? Aside from fighting crime like normal hero agencies, our primary mission is to go up against heroes who abuse their powers. Kaminari clenched his fists. Then I want to join this agency really bad, because my girlfriend was raped by a pro hero and I'm not about to let that happen again. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 froze when Kaminari mentioned the R word. Memories of what happened between her and Captain Famous coming back in droves. Nevertheless, she took a deep breath and tried to compose herself as well as she could. Hey, everything okay, Midoriya? 𝗧𝗪𝗧 nodded. Fine. I'm sorry about what happened to your girlfriend. Anyways, your application checked out, so I hereby accept you into the 𝗧𝗪𝗧 agency. Kaminari pumped his fist. All right. When do we get started? I'll call you when everything's set up. In the meantime, have a nice day, Kaminari. Kaminari waved at 𝗧𝗪𝗧. You too. With that, 𝗧𝗪𝗧 smiled, knowing that she'd found a capable team of heroes and was that much closer to getting people to believe in heroes again. Once again, 𝗧𝗪𝗧 had a nightmare about what happened between her and Captain Famous. But this time, she was better able to cope with it because she was looking forward to the first day with her new hero agency. Naturally, she was the first one at the agency's HQ, but the first of her heroes to show up was someone she hadn't expected. Kakin, you're early. Yeah, well it wasn't like I had anything better to do. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 smiled. Still, I'm glad you chose to show up. Kakin crossed his arms. I'd be glad too if it wasn't for the fact that I have to work for you. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 frowned. I know you and I have had our differences over the years, but I have no hard feelings towards you anymore, and I offered you this second chance because you're my friend and I care about you. Whatever. Excuse me, but am I late? Todoroki had shown up. No, you're still early, Todoroki. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 smiled. Wait, who the crap are you? Said Kakin. Pardon me, but I don't believe we've met. My name is Shoto Todoroki, also known as just Shoto. Not that it matters, but I'm Katsuki Byakugo, Aka Ground Zero. Nice to meet you, Byakugo. Todoroki attempted to shake hands with Kakin, but the latter left him hanging. Much to his confusion, why are you not shaking hands with me? Because I don't like you, that's why. And why are you yelling at me? I haven't done anything wrong to you. Because everyone sucks. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 put her fists on her hips and frowned. Kakin, I understand if you don't like people, but Todoroki's trying to be friendly. Please shake hands with him. And if I don't, 𝐒𝐭𝐞𝐲 Kaken grumbled. Fine. Reluctantly, Kaken shook hands with Todoroki, giving him a death grip in the process. Hey Bakugo, glad you made it, said Kirishima. Kaken nodded. So, you actually decided to show up? Hell yeah, brother. I wouldn't miss this for the world. You know Bakugo, said Todoroki. Of course. Kim and I have been best buds since middle school. Interesting. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Shoto Todoroki, also known as Shoto. Nice to meet ya. Ijiro Kirishima, aka Red Riot. Todoroki and Kirishima shook hands with each other. So Todoroki, what made you wanna become a hero? Asked Kirishima. My father was a top hero himself. When I was a boy, he subjected me to a brutal training regimen, trying to turn me into a weapon to surpass the legendary All Might. I always hated him for what he did to me, but at the same time, I could see that there was some semblance of good within him, and it was this that made me wanna be different from him. Not to be the hero that he wanted me to be, but the hero that I wanted to be. Kirishima, who had been listening intently, had a serious look on his face. Whoa, that sounds heavy. Weight has nothing to do with it. Hey, am I late to the party? Asked Kaminari. Deku smiled. No, you're still a bit early. Hey Kaminari, glad to see you're here, too, said Kirishima. I didn't know you were here too, Kirishima. Todoroki pointed at Kaminari and Kirishima. Wait, you two know each other? Of course, said Kirishima. Kaminari and I met at about the same time that I met Bakugo. Fascinating. Todoroki turned to Kaminari. Allow me to introduce myself. I am Shoto Todoroki, also known as Shoto. Denki Kaminari, aka 𝐴𝐵𝐺𝐿. Nice to meet you. Todoroki and Kaminari shook hands. Well, now that everybody's here, why don't we begin? Said Deku. I'm sure we know each other's names, but let's talk about our quirks. I'm the 9th holder of One for All, a quirk passed down through generations with immense power. Kaken stepped forward. My quirk is Explosion, which allows me to secrete explosive sweat and use it as a weapon. Todoroki stepped forward next. My quirk is Half Cold, Half Hot, which allows me to shoot ice from the right half of my body and fire from my left half. It was Kirishima's turn next. My quirk is Hardening, which allows me to harden my entire body. Finally, Kaminari stepped up. My quirk is Electrification, which allows me to shoot electricity from my body. Now then, said Deku, before we go out for our first mission, I want everybody to raise your right hands. Everyone did so. Now, repeat after me. As a member of the 𝐒𝐭𝐲 Agency. As a member of the 𝐒𝐭𝐲 Agency. I solemnly swear or affirm. I solemnly swear or affirm. To defend the city of New York and its inhabitants. To defend the city of New York and its inhabitants. To bring justice to heroes who abuse their powers. To bring justice to heroes who abuse their powers. To uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. To uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. And to make this world a better place for all. And to make this world a better place for all. Amen. Amen. Deku lowered her hand, and everybody else followed suit. Okay, before we begin, I'd like to go over a few things. The NYPD's comp stat system reports a 6% increase in crime yesterday from the day before, and the FDNY reports 6 calls yesterday, which was down 1% from the day before. If anybody here has any information to report regarding rogue heroes, please speak now. Kirishima raised his hand. Yes, Red Riot. I got something. I heard about a guy named 𝗔𝗪𝗓𝗍, aka Hell Knight. Rumor has it that he committed a massacre at a church over the weekend. Deku stroked her chin. Interesting. I've heard of Hell Knight before, but this is the first I'm hearing of him committing such a heinous act. Do you know what agency he works for? Kirishima shrugged. According to what I know, he's an independent. Todoroki raised his hand. Yes, Todoroki, said Deku. Midoriya, I'm sorry, but as a devout Satanist, I must object to this assignment on religious grounds. Deku frowned and put her fists on her hips. Then let me make something clear to you. Just because he massacred a church doesn't mean that that's all he's targeting. Suppose he targets a foster home next. Or a hospital? What then? Todoroki gazed deeply into Deku's green eyes. Even when she was angry, he found her to be extremely beautiful. And he couldn't possibly turn against her lest he not get a chance to be with her. With her beauty boring into his very soul. There was only one option for him. Very well. I accept. I won't like it, though. Deku smiled. I don't expect you to like it. I just want people to be able to walk the streets safely knowing there are heroes they can trust. Todoroki nodded. Right. Anyways, if no one has anything else, then let's get out there and restore people's faith in heroes. Go. Hero Enforcement Regiment. HOOAH. Everyone pumped their fists. The first day was pretty average for the 𝐒𝐭𝐲 Agency. Nothing notable happened beyond the usual hero agency adventures. That is, rescuing people from fires and car accidents, stopping crooks and the like. When they reconvened for lunch, however, Todoroki had something interesting to say. Midoriya, I overheard something about Hell Knight. Well, what is it? According to what I heard, his daughter is a fan of pop star Sailor Swift. Do we know if she's having any concerts around here? Let me see. 𝐸𝐭 pulled out her phone and looked up Sailor Whiff concerts. Good analysis, Todoroki. According to my information, she is having a concert at Madison Square Garden tonight at 7. 𝗬𝐭, are we gonna have to listen to her music? Said Kaken. Don't worry, Kaken. We won't be there to attend her concert, we're there to stop Hell Knight. Oh, good. Kaminari smiled. I dunno, I'm usually into rock, but I kinda like her music, plus she's pretty hot. Kirishima frowned. Wait, I thought you already had a girlfriend. What, can't a guy think pop stars are hot? Kaken glared at Kaminari. Later on, at Madison Square Garden, people from all around were packing in like sardines to see the latest concert from Sailor Whiff. This particular Madison Square Garden was the fourth such arena in New York City to bear that name, and it had played host to its fair share of concerts over the years, including several by Billy Joel. Many of the people attending this concert were diehard Whifties, as her fans were known, and the collective energy they felt from getting to see their favorite pop star live was such that it could power the whole United States for at least a decade. The roar of the crowd got louder and louder as more and more seats played host to sitting fans, hotly anticipating the start of the show. Finally, a voice came on to introduce the show. Ladies, gentlemen, and folks outside the gender binary, welcome to Madison Square Garden. Now for the moment you've all been waiting for. It's none other than Sailor WIFT. The crowd broke out into thunderous applause as Whift, a thin, tallish brunette with wavy hair and a ponytail, came out on stage accompanied by backup dancers and singers. She was dressed in a sequin bodysuit with black high-heel leather boots. For her first selection, she performed You Need to Calm Down, and even though her loyal fans weren't the subject of the song, they were anything but calm as they danced to the music like Sly and the Family Stone. By the time the song was over, people were cheering left and right, and Whift urged the crowd on. Hey, New York, y'all ready to get messed up and make bitchin' bad choices? The crowd cheered wildly. Yeah, that's what I like to hear. Don't let anybody else tell you no because it's gonna be alright. And this next song is living proof of that. Next, Whiff performed Shake It Off, another guaranteed crowd pleaser, and naturally, the crowd was more pleased than Punch. Hell, they were even more pleased than Judy. Glad to see y'all are having fun out here tonight. How many of you have been in a sucky relationship? Judging by the thunder of the crowd, more than a few people had been through what Lady Gaga would call bad romance. Okay, this one's not only about one of the guys I went out with, but, hello, Sailor Whift, how are you tonight? Whift turned to see who'd addressed her, 𝗓𝗏𝗓𝗏 aka Hell Knight, a tall man with a deep tan and short, curly black hair. His hero costume was a black suit of knight's armor with silver accents. Also accompanying him were a group of demons, much to the audience's shock. 𝗓𝗏𝗓𝗏 quirk, Hellspawn, can summon demons from hell to do his bidding. Naturally, Whift would have none of this. Who are you? Get off the stage. Hell Knight smirked. I'm afraid I can't do that, Miss Whift. You see, my daughter has been wanting to see you live for a while, but tickets to your shows always sell out like that. He snapped his fingers. So, I've taken it upon myself to remedy that. Okay, get off the stage right now or I'll call security. You don't scare me. Security. A bunch of security personnel got up on stage and attempted to apprehend Hell Knight, but his army of demons beat them up, much to Whiff's and the audience's shock. Now then, Hell Knight took a few steps towards Whift. Where were we? Whift dropped her microphone and pointed her palms at Hell Knight as she slowly backed away. Please, don't do this. I'll do what you want. Just don't kill me. You'll do what I want. Oh, how splendid. Don't worry, Miss Whift. Everything will be all right, because we are here. Whift, Hell Knight, the demons and everybody else turned to see 𝗬𝐭 and the rest of the Hero Enforcement Regiment standing in the nosebleed section, ready for action. Who the hell are you? Said Hell Knight. Hell Knight, I am 𝗬𝐭, the #1 pro hero, and we're here to put a stop to your cruel abuse of power. The audience cheered on 𝗬𝐭 and her fellow heroes, as did Whift and her crew. Hell Knight, however, would have none of this. You dare interfere with my plans, then you will die. Attack them, my loyal Hellspawn. Hell Knight's demons charged at 𝗬𝐭 and the rest of the HER, and Madison Square Garden became a scene of absolute bedlam as people scrambled to evacuate the scene, some even pushing and trampling over others in their mad dash to not fall victim to the demon hordes. Todoroki and Kirishima concentrated on trying to hold back the demons, Todoroki with ice walls, Kirishima with his hardening quirk. Kaken and Kaminari, meanwhile, focused on trying to kill, or at least banish, the demons. As for 𝗬𝐭, she went straight for Whift herself, using Black Whip to swing over to her and snatch her just as Hell Knight was about to. Hey, get back here. Hell Knight shook his fist at 𝗬𝐭. Hellspawn, go after her. Suddenly, all the demons went after 𝗬𝐭 and Whift. Seeing this opportunity, Todoroki attempted to shoot them in the back with his Smith & Wesson Model 29 and got a few. He also attempted to freeze some with ice blasts, and Kaken and Kaminari kept up their efforts, turning the garden into a veritable war zone. As for 𝗬𝐭, she used her speed to her advantage, taking as many twists and turns as possible in an attempt to lose the demons until she could get 𝗵𝘃 outside. Fortunately, both women made it out without a scratch, and 𝗧𝗂 brought 𝗵𝘃 over to the nearest NYPD officer. Stay here. 𝗧𝗂 smiled. You'll be safe out here. Right. Thank you. You're welcome. 𝗧𝗂 ran towards the garden as fast as she could, taking out any demons that got in her way. By the time she got back inside, Hell Knight was still spawning demons in an attempt to defeat the heroes. Kirishima was still holding up, but barely. These guys ... won't break me. Kaken, meanwhile, had his own idea about taking down the demons. How about this? Kaken pulled the pin on one of his grenade gauntlets and unleashed a powerful explosive blast that took out a bunch of demons. Seeing an open path, Kaminari headed over to Hell Knight. I'll put a shock to your system. 1,000,000 volts. Kaminari unleashed his most powerful electric shock at Hell Knight. Unfortunately for him, foolish imbecile, did you not know that my costume is insulated against electricity? Duh, was Kaminari's only response, his brain having been fried more than the combined forces of KFC, churches, and Popeye. Meanwhile, Todoroki, feeling the cold from repeated use of his ice, attempted to use fire against the demons, to no effect. Damn, I forgot my fire has no effect on these beings. It wasn't a total loss, however. Todoroki's attacks were distracting the demons long enough for 𝗧𝗂 to close in. Manchester Smash. Hell Knight took notice of 𝗧𝗂, but a little too late. She slammed into him with 18-wheeler force and sent him hurtling through the air until he collided headfirst with one of the walls surrounding the arena, putting him out of action. The rest of the gang mopped up the rest of the demons, while 𝗧𝗂 apprehended Hell Knight. Hell Knight, you're under arrest for mass murder and attempted kidnapping. You have the right to remain silent. If you give up the right to remain silent, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney and to have an attorney present during questioning. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to you at no charge. Do you understand each of these rights as I have read to you? Yeah, just arrest me. After Hell Knight was hauled away, most of the HER went to attend to various concertgoers, while 𝗧𝗂 herself attended to 𝗵𝘃. Miss 𝗵𝘃, how are you feeling? Better now, 𝗧𝗂. Today, though, was the most frightening thing I'd ever been through in my life. I still can't believe anyone would want to kidnap me. I'd always thought heroes were good, but this guy seemed more like a villain if you ask me. 𝗧𝗂 put a hand on 𝗵𝘃's shoulder. It's okay to feel scared. That's part of being human. I promise you, if you ever experience any nightmares or such relating to this incident, I'll find a therapist or something for you. 𝗵𝘃 smiled. I'm already seeing a therapist, but thanks. You're a real hero, you know that? So are you. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of your music, Miss 𝗵𝘃, but from what I read about you, you seem like a very caring person. Please, call me Sailor. 𝗵𝘃 gave 𝗧𝗂 a big hug, which she gladly returned. In a way, this made 𝗧𝗂 feel as though a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. After experiencing nightmares related to the recent trauma she'd been through, hugging a fellow woman put a smile on her face like nothing else could. Plus, hugging a well-known celebrity like her was a bonus all of its own, too. The media even approved, snapping pictures of this historic moment. A moment only interrupted when, hey 𝗧𝗂, are you gonna come back home or are you gonna keep lezzing out on that woman? 𝗧𝗂 broke away from the hug. Coming, Kaken. 𝗵𝘃 put a hand on 𝗧𝗂's shoulder. 𝗧𝗂, wait. What's up? Mind if I get a selfie with you? 𝗧𝗂 smiled. Of course not. Go ahead. 𝗵𝘃 took a selfie with 𝗧𝗂. Even if this was only the first step in making people believe in heroes again, for the Green Bean, it was an important step. 𝗧𝗂 slept better last night. Granted, she still had a nightmare, but she couldn't remember what it was about, only that she'd had one. Still, she kept her wits about her as she entered her office today. This time, Todoroki was the first one here. Good morning, Todoroki. Good morning, Midoriya. So, how are you today? Other than the fact that I was a letdown to Mistress Lucifer, I'm doing all right. 𝗧𝗂 frowned. Todoroki, we went over this already. You shouldn't have to let your religion get in the way of being a hero. Maybe you shouldn't. I had to sacrifice a dozen chickens to appease Mistress Lucifer. 𝗧𝗂 put her fists on her hips. Okay, you're a good hero, but you're extremely weird. Being normal is non-existent nowadays. You of all people should know this by now. Hey guys, you gotta check this out. Kirishima came in waving a copy of the New York Times. What's up, Kirishima? Asked 𝗧𝗂. Look. 𝗧𝗂 looked at the front page and was surprised to see the following headline. 𝗧𝗂 foils attack on Mega Pop Concert #1 Pro Hero stops corrupt hero from kidnapping #1 pop star last night. Sailor 𝗵𝘃's latest concert at Madison Square Garden turned into sheer bedlam when 𝗎𝗍𝗍, better known as the pro hero Hell Knight, attempted to kidnap the mega pop star. However, the attempt was foiled when Izuko Midoriya, better known as the #1 hero 𝗧𝗂, along with 4 other heroes, worked together not only to stop Hell Knight, but to evacuate 𝗵𝘃 and innocent concertgoers to safety. It breaks my heart to know that someone who's supposedly a hero is using his powers for evil instead of good, said Whiff. However, I'm grateful that Deeku and her fellow heroes showed up to save the day. I'll never forget what they did. When asked to comment on the incident, Deeku said, I'm tired of heroes thinking they can get away with abusing their powers just because of their status. My agency is working hard not only to stop criminals, but to ensure that people can be proud of the heroes who work to protect them. Not much is known of the other heroes who assisted Deeku. Multiple witnesses confirmed that one of her fellow heroes was one Shoto Todoroki, son of the late Ieiji Todoroki, better known to the public as Endeavor, the former #1 pro hero. Also accompanying the story was a picture of Deeku and Whiff hugging. What do you think? Said Kirishima. Deeku lowered the paper. You know what I think. I'm glad this story made front page news, because it means that heroes can't get away with abusing their powers any longer. Todoroki nodded. I'm glad, too. All right, what the crap is all this about? Kaken had just made his entrance. Kaken, look. Deeku handed Kaken the newspaper, and he wasted no time in reading the front page story. What the crap? They didn't even mention my name. Kirishima put a hand on Kaken's shoulder. Relax, Bakugo. I'm sure you'll get your moment in the limelight. Hey, what's all the hubbub about? Said Kaminari. Here, Kaken handed Kaminari the paper, and he too eagerly read the front page story. Hey Midoriya, that's awesome. I mean, even if they didn't mention my name, it's nice that our work's being recognized. I know, right, said Kirishima. Anyways, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get down to business, said Deeku. The NYPD's comp stat system reports a 2% decrease in crime yesterday from the day before, and the FDNY reports 5 calls yesterday, which was down 16% from the day before. Our special assignment for today is this. Deeku activated the hologram projector, which showed a hero wearing a silver bodysuit with matching boots and gloves. This is Craig Dodgson, hero name Compact Disc. His quirk allows him to shoot CDs at people. He is currently employed with the Nightshade Agency. Recently, he was accused of accepting payments from Grove Pharmaceuticals to silence people who had been investigating the drug 𝗵𝗃𝗃, a new antidepressant known to have a host of side effects, including paralysis. Here's the plan. I'll enter Grove Pharma's headquarters disguised as a new member of the management staff and collect as much data as I can on 𝗵𝗃𝗃, and you 4 will work on taking down Compact Disc. Any questions? Kaken raised his hand. Yes, Kaken. And what the crap will we do if you get caught? I'll have a small transponder on me, plus one of these communicators. Deeku showed off a communicator that resembled a wristwatch. I should be able to fight my way out, but if I'm overwhelmed, I'll press the red button and send out the signal. Any other questions? Todoroki raised his hand next. Yes, Todoroki. Shouldn't one of us come along to back you up? Deeku smiled. Relax, Todoroki. Like I said, I should be capable enough on my own, but if you see the signal coming from my transponder, then you can help me out, okay? Todoroki nodded. Okay. Now, are there any other questions? No one else had any other questions. Good. Go. Hero Enforcement Regiment. HOOAH. For this assignment, Deeku shed her hero costume and put on business wear, namely a white blouse, dark blue suit jacket with matching pencil skirt and black high-heel shoes. She had also tied up her dark green hair into a long ponytail. Prior to the mission, she also had All Might assist her in procuring a fake ID. As she pulled up to Grove Pharma's HQ in Queens, she came to a security gate, whereupon she used her ID to buzz in. After parking her Caprice, she headed on into the building, which was a typical office building that hardly stood out in New York City. Can I help you? Asked the security guard at the front desk, a brown-haired man of average build. Izuko Matsushita, regional manager for the Mid-Atlantic. The guard nodded. Head on up. Deeku headed to the elevator. She knew that management's offices would be on the top floor, so she headed there and looked for the regional manager's office. It wasn't too hard to find, although the nameplate next to the door said Joseph Doorley. Undeterred, she used her ID to unlock the door. Hey, who are you? Deeku turned to see who'd addressed her. A tall, middle-aged, balding red-haired man with a mustache and glasses. He was wearing a gray suit with a black tie, white shirt and black leather dress shoes. She smiled and waved at him. Hi, I'm Izuko Matsushita, the new regional manager for the Mid-Atlantic. New regional manager for the Mid-Atlantic, said the man. Funny, no one ever told me anything about your visit. Anyways, allow me to introduce myself. I'm David Lange, CEO of Grove Pharmaceuticals. Pleasure to meet you, sir. Deeku shook hands with Lange. Since you're here, I have an office especially for you. Follow me. Deeku followed Lange, who led her to an office marked visiting managers. Enjoy your stay, said Lange. If you ever need anything, you can always talk to me. Deeku gave a thumbs up. Right. Blanche headed back to his office, while Deeku buzzed into the visiting manager's office. It was quite luxuriously decorated, with a few paintings, a mahogany desk with leather swivel chair, and a brown leather couch. Immediately, she sat down at the desk and fired up the Dell desktop computer there. Naturally, it required her to log in using a password, so she undid a couple of buttons near the top of her blouse and pulled out a USB cracking stick from her cleavage, which resembled an ordinary flash drive. But when she inserted it into one of the USB ports, it automatically cracked a password and let her log in. Now that she was logged in, Deeku pulled something else from her cleavage, this time an ordinary flash drive. After inserting this into another USB port, she began browsing through Grove's files, in particular looking for information on 𝐕𝘃𝗧𝗏. The number of files in the system was bewildering, but she kept her cool and reminded herself that modern computers were particularly quick at searching for files. Fortunately, she found a treasure trove of files before long. Unfortunately, while finding the files was easy enough, copying them proved to be a chore because it took a while for the files to be copied from the databanks to her flash drive. To kill time, she minimized any programs that showed the files and opened up Doom. Even if vanilla Doom wasn't as fun as brutal Doom, in Deeku's opinion, Doom was Doom. While she was playing 𝗵𝗄𝗏, she heard someone using their ID to buzz in, so she quickly alt-tabbed out of the game and opened up Microsoft Excel. "Everything okay in here?" said Lange. "Yeah, fine. I was just about to analyze some quarterly reports. Divided by carry on, then." While Deeku was working on copying Grove's files, Kaken, Todoroki, Kirishima, and Kaminari were in Brooklyn, parked outside of the Nightshade Agency in Todoroki's car, a Matador red 1972 Oldsmobile 98 Regency with white vinyl roof. "Icy hot. How long are we gonna have to wait for this CD guy?" said Kaken. "We shouldn't have to wait too long, 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗏. I have a feeling he'll be out soon." "Yeah, well he better." "Heck, I could wait all day," said Kaminari. "This is a really nice car. Seriously, Todoroki, where did he get the money to afford this?" "My father left me with a considerable sum," replied Todoroki. "Hey, not to break up this conversation, but look." Kirishima pointed to the doors of the agency, and sure enough, Compact Disc was exiting. "Let's go." Todoroki started his Oldsmobile, and Compact Disc got into the passenger's seat of a black Cadillac Escalade, which the four heroes proceeded to follow. Meanwhile, Todoroki radioed into Deeku. "Midoriya, this is Todoroki. How's the download coming along? I should be almost finished. What's the status of Compact Disc?" He got into a black SUV. "We're following him now." "Okay, continue to follow him. I'll meet up with you as soon as I can." Deeku out. Todoroki and the rest of the gang continued to follow Compact Disc. Thus far, it didn't appear as though the driver or any other occupants of the Escalade had spotted them, so they continued driving. Eventually, the Escalade stopped at a parking lot in Queens, and Todoroki drove past for a bit so as not to arouse suspicion. Once he found a suitable parking spot, he shut off his Oldsmobile's engine, and him, Kaken, Kirishima, and Kaminari got out and observed the proceeding. It appeared as though Compact Disc was meeting with a bunch of men in black suits. "Here's your next witness," said one of the men. "Make it as clean as possible." Compact Disc nodded. "I will." Now, Todoroki then jumped out of cover with his Model 29 drawn. "Freeze." The men took notice of Todoroki and co. But rather than doing as the bicolor hero had ordered, they drew 𝐒𝐿𝑎𝑟 MP7 submachine guns and attempted to waste him. However, Todoroki was quicker on the draw, not to mention Kaken and Kaminari's quirks made short work of the rest of them. All that remained was Compact Disc, and he wasn't intent on giving up. "Halt, villains. Don't make me slice you in half." "Villains," said Kaken. Pretty tough talk common from a guy taking bribes. And what would you know about that? Heroes have to make a living some way or another. "Yeah," said Kirishima. "Well, I say that getting paid off to silence witnesses is really unmanly." "Enough. It's time I stopped you." Compact Disc fired a bunch of CDs in rapid succession. Todoroki blocked them with ice shields, but even these didn't seem to hold for too long. Kirishima fared better with his quirk. But it was clear that unless the Hero Enforcement Regiment went on the offensive, then they were doomed. "Icy hot." "Kirishima, keep distracting him," said Kaken. "I got an idea." Kaken set himself up for an attack. But just before he could get on with it, their transponders went off. "New plan," said Todoroki. "Kirishima, Kaminari, you hold off Compact Disc. 𝗵𝘃𝗀𝗏 and I will help out Midoriya." "What the crap, Icy hot? I was just getting ready to make my move." Kirishima and Kaminari are capable enough on their own. Midoriya is a bigger priority. Todoroki ice surfed away. "Damn it, 𝐒𝐬𝐽𝐻𝐿." Despite Kaken's reluctance to leave when things were getting good, he went along with Todoroki's plan. Todoroki and Kaken made it to Grove Pharma's HQ in short time, and it looked more like a war zone than a workplace as a group of pro-heroes attempted to apprehend Deeku. Without further ado, Todoroki aimed a blast of ice at a giant hero with blue, stone-like skin. Didn't your mother tell you never to hit girls? Said Todoroki. The blue stone hero beat his chest. 𝐎𝐩𝐢𝐽𝐾 crush. A bunch of pros turned on Todoroki and Kaken, while a select few kept their focus on Deku. Seeing as how the pros' attention was divided, Deku looked for an opening and found one. A pro who had a quirk that could shoot sludge at people attempted to immobilize Deku, but Todoroki froze the sludge with his eyes. Let's get out of here, Bakugo. Does that mean, yes, we can get back to kicking Compact Disc's ass? All right. Meanwhile, Kirishima and Kaminari were doing their best to take down Compact Disc. But while Kaminari's electricity was doing a pretty good job of slowing the CD hero down, he refused to give up, and even Kirishima's hardening was starting to flake. Man, Todoroki and Bakugo better get back here soon. I don't know how much more of this I can take. Fortunately for Kirishima, he didn't have to wait too long, and Detroit Smash. While Kirishima and Kaminari were distracting Compact Disc, Deku aimed a powerful punch square at him, and it connected with seismic precision, sending the corrupt hero hurtling ignominiously through the air before colliding with the 𝐒𝐻𝐽𝐽𝐻𝐿. Having knocked him for a loop, Deku closed in with the rest of her team and arrested him. What are you gonna do with the evidence? Asked Todoroki. Deku clenched a fist. I know exactly who I'm taking it to. Deku ended up taking the intel she'd received on hypothetical to the FBI. The next day seemed to be another day at her agency, and just like yesterday, Todoroki was the first to show up. Midoriya, may I have a word with you? Sure. What's on your mind, Todoroki? First of all, I want to tell you what an honor it is to work for your agency. This is without a doubt the best hero agency I've worked for. Second of all, Todoroki tapped his index fingers together. I'm glad you're happy here, but you seem like you're nervous. Is everything okay? Todoroki nodded nervously. Why yes, the thing is, Midoriya, I think you're a very admirable, fascinating woman, and if it's all right with you I'd like to take you out for coffee. Deku blushed, but nevertheless smiled. Oh, I'd love to. In fact, I know this great little cafe in the Upper East Side. Really? What's it called? It's called Variety Coffee Roasters. Todoroki stroked his chin. I've been to one by that name in Williamsburg, but I've never been to the location you've spoken of, so I'm looking forward to it. Deku smiled. Grand. Meet me there after work. Okay. Oh, and here's my number in case anything comes up. Deku and Todoroki exchanged numbers. For today's assignment, the Hero Enforcement Regiment was taking on a hero named Jonathan O'Brien, aka Meatbag, whose quirk allowed himself to cover his entire body in meat as a sort of makeshift armor and whose crime was kidnapping women from out of town and attempting to make them fight in his own sick, twisted battle royale. While Meatbag wasn't their toughest assignment, he still gave the HER a run for their money. Nevertheless, they apprehended him and all came home alive. After their shifts had concluded, Deku and Todoroki headed for Variety Coffee Roasters. Seeing Deku, Kendra had her usual ready for her, though she couldn't help but take notice of Todoroki. Hey Deku, who's this handsome guy? Kendra, this is Shoto Todoroki, he's one of my employees. Todoroki, this is Kendra. Kendra smiled. Nice to meet ya. Todoroki nodded. Nice to meet you too. So, what'll it be? I'll have a coffee, black. Anything else? That's it. Todoroki paid for both of their drinks. Once he got his coffee, both of them sat down. Todoroki, you didn't have to pay for both of us. Logically, no, but I think you're a good person and you deserve to be treated well. Deku smiled. Oh, now then, tell me about yourself. What made you want to become a hero? Deku finished taking a sip. When I was a little girl, I saw a video of All Might saving people from a huge disaster, all with a smile on his face, and I decided that I wanted to be just like him. Unfortunately, my dreams were nearly shattered when a doctor told me I would always be quirkless. I refused to give up on my dreams, though, and one day, I tried to save Kaken from a villain. As if by sheer luck, All Might saw this, and he was so moved by my selflessness that he passed his quirk down to me. Fascinating story. I never would have guessed you were once quirkless, or that quirks could be passed from one person to another. Todoroki took a sip of his coffee. Well, my quirk is a special case. It's been passed down from generation to generation, getting stronger and more powerful over time. Judging by what I've seen you do, it seems like something to be feared. Enough about me though. I'm curious about you. Why are you so into Satanism? It's not that I hate all religions. Thing is, I get enraged when people misuse religion for their own selfish ends. A best friend of mine was murdered by a member of a church for having an abortion. So I took up Satanism not because I have a genuine interest in Lucifer, but more as a way of rebelling against people who shove religion down others' throats. Deku nodded. I see. Even if I don't agree with your religion, I think you have a valid reason for practicing it. Thank you for your understanding, Midoriya. I realize I can be a frightening individual at times, but I truly believe in being a hero, and in a way, you inspired me. Oh, Deku lowered her cup. Even before I met you, I had heard about you, and I truly admired how you could save the world with a smile on your face. Even if I could never hope to be as good as you, your example taught me that I too can be a great hero if I try hard enough. 𝗧𝗪 smiled. Todoroki, you don't have to be number one to be a great hero. As long as you're the best hero that you can be, that's all that matters. Thank you, Midoriya. Those words mean a lot to me, and so they should. The fact that you chose to sign up with my agency means a lot to me, too. 𝗧𝗪 took another sip. After finishing their drinks, 𝗧𝗪 and Todoroki headed on out. Todoroki, thanks for inviting me out. I had a good time with you, as did I. Shall we go to dinner next? Of course. I know a Wendy's near my apartment. Let me text you the address. 𝗧𝗪 texted Todoroki the address of the Wendy's in question. See you tomorrow. 𝗧𝗪 waved at Todoroki. Yes. With that, 𝗧𝗪 and Todoroki parted ways. Thought Todoroki, I haven't known her for that long, but I'm already in love with her. It was another day at the 𝗧𝗪 agency, except 𝗧𝗪 had a little extra spring in her step, having gone out with a guy who she thought was extremely handsome. Not to mention actually pretty nice despite being a Satanist, she had that much more hope for the future. Then again, the fact that she and the rest of her agency were working to bring down corrupt heroes was helping as well. Naturally, she couldn't help but smile when Todoroki came in. Hey Todoroki, how's it going? Not too bad. And you? I'm doing quite well, thank you. Also, thanks again for going out with me yesterday. That was one of the happiest moments of my life. 𝗧𝗪 smiled. Oh, you're welcome. I was really happy, too. For today's assignment, the Hero Enforcement Regiment was taking on a hero known as Melvin Ferrara, aka Lemon Juice, whose quirk allowed him to shoot lemon juice from his hands. His special crime was attempting to kidnap a Ukrainian ambassador. Naturally, 𝗧𝗪 and her team's efforts didn't go unnoticed by the media. 𝗧𝗪, what inspired you to take on corrupt heroes? Asked a reporter for ABC7 New York. Well, I'd heard one too many stories of heroes using their powers to take advantage of innocent people, and I used to think those stories were just rumors until I was attacked by a hero. So I decided that I wasn't just going to step aside and let these abuses continue. Some people are saying that what you're doing is illegal, said a reporter for the New York Post. What do you have to say in your defense? Can what my agency is doing really be any more illegal than what corrupt heroes are doing? But aren't you concerned that the authorities will come after you and your sidekicks? Asked a reporter for Fox News. Let them come. I know deep in my heart that what I'm doing is the right thing and that the authorities will endorse my efforts. After the media frenzy she went through that day, 𝗧𝗪 headed to the Wendy's in question, located on 5805 Broadway. Shortly after she got there, Todoroki arrived. Good to see you again, Todoroki. The pleasure is likewise, Midoriya. 𝗧𝗪 and Todoroki headed up to the counter. Hi, what can I get for you? Asked the guy at the counter, a tall Hispanic guy. I'll have a $5 biggie bag with a chicken BLT and a medium drink, please, said 𝗧𝗪. The cashier punched in 𝗧𝗪's order. Will there be anything else? I'll have a Baconator with fries and a large vanilla frosty, please, said Todoroki. So I have a $5 biggie bag with a chicken BLT, a medium drink, a Baconator with fries and a large vanilla frosty. Is that it? That's it, said 𝗧𝗪 and Todoroki. 𝗧𝗪 reached into her purse to get her wallet, but Todoroki was quicker to pay, after which the cashier gave 𝗧𝗪 her drink cup. She then headed to the drink machine, but not without speaking up to Todoroki. You know, you're not legally required to pay for both of us every time. Logically, no, but I like you, and I wanted to do a kindness for you. That's really sweet of you, but I should be the one paying for us. Well, if you're that insistent, then I'll let you pay for us on our next outing together. By now, their food was ready, so Todoroki grabbed the tray and headed to a table in the corner with 𝗧𝗪. So, Todoroki, what are some of your hobbies? I enjoy listening to music, lifting weights, collecting firearms, and playing video games. Todoroki took a bite of his Baconator. You like video games too? Awesome sauce. What kinds of video games are you into? 𝗧𝗪 took a bite of her chicken BLT. I like a lot of different games, but one of my favorites is Doom. 𝗧𝗪 nearly choked on her sandwich. You love Doom? Oh my gosh, that's one of my favorites. Really? How interesting. Do you create your own WADs for it? Of course. Todoroki smiled. Nice. It's good to know we have a few things in common already. 𝗧𝗪 averted her gaze while smiling. It is. Todoroki's look turned serious. Is something wrong, Midoriya? Wah. 𝗧𝗪 refocused on Todoroki. Oh, and no. I was just thinking. I understand. Tell me, how did you get into Doom? I discovered the game when I went over a friend's house, and he had it playing on his computer. Since then, I've been hooked. That sort of reminds me of my story. My older brother Natsuo was playing it on his PlayStation when I walked in on him, and I too have been a fan since. 𝗧𝗪 smiled. Nice to know we have something in common. Indeed. You know, you may be a peculiar guy who's obsessed with Satanism, but I like you, Todoroki, and I can tell you're a trustworthy person. Todoroki lowered his Baconator. How so? I'm extremely skilled at reading people, and based on the tone in your voice, the way you make eye contact with me and your nonverbal cues, you give off a very trustworthy vibe to me. Well, I try to be. When you told me about what your mission was, I decided that it was compatible with my values, and I want to live up to your ideals and help you make people believe in heroes again. 𝗧𝗪𝐿 smiled. Believe me, after the kind of missions we've undertaken, you've already lived up to my ideals. Todoroki nodded and took another bite of his baconator. After the two of them finished their supper, they headed on out. Todoroki, I had another good time with you. Thanks again for inviting me. Todoroki nodded. Oh, you're welcome. I gotta be honest. I'm still weirded out knowing you're into Satanism, but I know you're not all bad. Well, I try not to be bad, especially considering what happened to my father. 𝗧𝗪𝐿's look turned serious. Why? What happened to him? Hey, before Todoroki could answer that question, 𝗧𝗪𝐿 pushed him to the ground just as an energy blast singed by them. Shortly thereafter, the one responsible for the energy blast ran over, a tall Asian man with a healthy tan, short, spiky black hair and a thunderbolt-shaped scar over his left eye. He wore a red short-sleeved jumpsuit with yellow trim, a blue undershirt and yellow boots. After recovering from the shock of nearly getting killed, Deku got up and confronted the man. Who are you and why did you try to kill us? My name is Captain 𝗵𝗄𝗄. I was a good friend of Hell Knight. You're 𝗧𝗪𝐿, the hero who captured him, and I'm gonna make you pay. Scott Captain 𝗵𝗄𝗄 𝗔𝗪𝗓. Quirk, 𝗵𝗄𝗄 Blast. Can fire powerful, destructive blasts of energy, but requires time to recharge, and he gets tired if he uses it too often. Captain 𝗵𝗄𝗄 cupped his hands together. Todoroki pushed 𝗧𝗪𝐿 aside. 𝐹𝐿ASHFREZHEATWAV? Todoroki fired a superheated burst at Captain 𝗵𝗄𝗄 before he could finish his attack, thus frying the rip-off hero. Meanwhile, 𝗧𝗪𝐿 watched the whole thing with awe, and once it was all over, she ran over to Todoroki. Todoroki, why did you push me out of the way? I could have helped, too. Todoroki blushed. I'm sorry, I just wanted to protect you. I'll let you help out next time. 𝗧𝗪𝐿 smiled. It's okay, it was really sweet of you to help me out. 𝗧𝗪𝐿 gave Todoroki a big hug, which her gladly returned. It had been so long since Todoroki had gotten a hug that he couldn't remember if anyone had actually hugged him before. Nevertheless, feeling her arms wrapped around him made him feel all secure and snuggly. In this moment, he didn't think about how shy he used to be around women. Rather, he thought about how grateful he was that this particular woman had given him a chance to go out with her and that she saw the good within him. One of his favorite things about hugging her, though, was the fact that she was the softest, warmest, most cuddly woman he'd ever held. It helped to relax his blood pressure like nothing else could. 𝗧𝗪𝐿 enjoyed hugging Todoroki as well. After the horror of what she'd been through with Captain 𝗵𝗄𝗄, it was so refreshing for her to be able to hold somebody that she could trust. Granted, she'd only known this bicolor hero for a short time, but already he'd proven himself in her eyes. She too felt safe being in his strong, manly arms, resting her head against his shoulder. Even if he was weird, none of that crossed her mind. Besides, he was right, nobody was truly normal. On the other hand, to her, it was his particular brand of abnormality that she found attractive, and she wanted to be with him for as long as possible. Eventually, she let go, but not without a smile on her face. Come on, let's get out of here, said 𝗧𝗪𝐿. But first, yes, how would you like to go to infinity with me tomorrow night? Todoroki scratched his temple. What's infinity? It's this big disco located on Broadway. Todoroki shook his head slightly and averted his gaze. I don't know, I'm not very much into disco music. Deku smiled and put a hand on Todoroki's shoulder. Then let me sweeten the deal. I'll do whatever you want with me if you go there with me. May I spend the night at your place? Of course. Then I'll go. Luckily, I have a suit for the occasion. Grand. See you tomorrow night at 8. Right. 𝗧𝗪𝐿 and Todoroki parted ways. If things kept going up for her, she figured she was headed for something really good. Today began like most any other day at the 𝗧𝗪𝐿 agency as the members of the Hero Enforcement Regiment gathered for their daily duties. Having gone out on a couple of successful dates with Todoroki, 𝗧𝗪𝐿 in particular was able to look to the future with hope. There was, however, one problem. Has anybody seen Kaminari? Asked 𝗧𝗪𝐿. Kakin shrugged. Hell if I know where he is. Todoroki shook his head. I don't know where he is, either. Neither do I. And he was supposed to meet me for breakfast this morning, said Kirishima. I even tried calling him and he didn't pick up. Maybe he overslept. 𝗧𝗪𝐿 put her fists on her hips. Well, all of you were given explicit instructions to call in ahead of time if you can't come into work. She stroked her chin. Still, maybe something happened to him. Regardless, let's get on with the briefing. Compstad. Just then, 𝗧𝗪𝐿 was interrupted by John Williams' Superman theme, so she answered her phone. Hello, 𝗧𝗪𝐿, or should I say, Izuko Midoriya. Who's this? You don't know me, but I know you. My name is Bob Gunderson, better known to you as the pro hero Razor Sharp. I used to work for Captain 𝗵𝗄𝗄, and I know what you did to him, but see, that's only part of the reason I'm calling. We have your boy Kaminari, and unless you're prepared to do what we want, we'll kill him. Don't listen to him, Midoriya, cried Kaminari. He's bluffing. Shut up. No, we ain't bluffin'. But more to the point, Jim ain't bluffin' either, and he's the one with the meaner quirk. You bastard, shouted Deku. You won't get away with this. Oh, won't we? Said Razor Sharp. Listen, Chickie, I'm a reasonable man, and I'm willin' to let you have Kaminari back. But on one condition, give me $5 million in unmarked bills and bring it to the net cost market on Staten Island. If the money's counterfeit, if the serial numbers match, or if the bills are marked, that's bad news for Kaminari. Oh, and don't bring none of your friends, cause that's also bad news for Kaminari. Before you give us the money, though, we're gonna play a little game. There's a phone hidden under one of the gumball machines. Better hurry, cause it's only gonna ring 5 times. And when that 5th ring is up, Jim's gonna get tired of waitin'. And when Jim gets tired of waitin', that's extra bad news for Kaminari. Razor Sharp let out an evil chuckle before hanging up. Let me guess, somebody kidnapped him, said Kakin. Deku nodded. Exactly. Kirishima clenched his fists. Well then we're gonna help you. No, everyone, stay here and go on about your business, said Deku. If he knows any of you are coming along, then they'll kill Kaminari. Then what are we supposed to do? Said Todoroki. Listen, trust me when I say I'll be fine. Okay, said everybody else. Deku did her best to get the money together, which was little trouble considering that one. She made plenty in her line of work, and 2, she had a great relationship with her bank. Granted, the tellers found her directives curious, but they thought little of it. She was the #1 hero, after all, and they figured she was using the money for honorable purposes. That aside, it took her little time to get to the net cost market on Amboy Road on Staten Island, and shortly after her arrival, she heard the phone ring. Fortunately, she found the gumball machine it was taped under, so she grabbed it and answered it. No. You didn't think it was gonna be that easy, did ya? Next phone's under a chair in front of the 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵𝐵𝐼𝐴𝐵𝐵𝐼 house on Unionport Road. Kaminari's hoppin' that you get to it before Jim gets tired of waitin'. Razor Sharp hung up, while Deku clenched her fist, hoping that Kaminari would still be alive when this was all over. Deku held onto the phone, figuring that maybe she could get some fingerprints off of it besides hers. That aside, she hurried over to the Parkchester neighborhood of the Bronx, where Call's supermarket and the adjacent 𝗂𝐿 house were located. There were some chairs and tables set up in front of the Biryani house. So she diligently checked the chairs until she heard ringing. So she hurried to the chair where she heard the ringing, grabbed the phone that was taped underneath it and answered. You gettin' the hang of this now, Chickie? Good. Next, we're gonna want you to head over to the Brooklyn Botanic Garden. The next phone is in the bonsai garden at the Steinhardt Conservatory. You've been doing good so far, so don't screw this up. Again, Razor Sharp hung up. Deku made it over to the Brooklyn Botanic Garden and burst through the doors of the main building in the Steinhardt Conservatory, where the bonsai garden was located. She made it inside just as the phone began ringing. Only she had a problem when an old, balding black man with glasses picked it up. No, don't answer that phone. Contrary to Deku's hopes, the man ended up answering the phone. Hello, hey, who the hell is this? Said Razor Sharp. Please, give me that phone. Deku snatched the phone from the guy, much to his confusion. Meanwhile, Razor Sharp indicated his displeasure with Deku. Who the hell was that just now? Nobody. Listen, Chickie, you're treading on thin ice with me right now. Don't let any more screw-ups happen, okay? Alright. Now then, get yourself over to the Museum of the Moving Image in Queens. There's a phone at the Wiz exhibit. Better hurry, because Jim only has so much patience, and Kaminari's hoppin' that patience don't run out. Yet again, Razor Sharp hung up, not wanting any trouble. Deku forked over some money for a ticket when she got to the Museum of the Moving Image. She quickly yet carefully made her way to the exhibit dedicated to the Wiz, the 1978 film adaptation of the hit Broadway musical of the same name. She worried that she'd never be able to find the phone before it rang, but fortunately, she was able to locate the phone when it started ringing, and picked it up. We were figuring it would've lost interest by now. Shows you still care about your boy Kaminari. Hope we ain't boring you yet. But enough talk. There's one last phone. It's under a bench next to the dog park at Pier 84. Don't let anybody get to it before you do. Razor Sharp hung up again. Getting to all of these different destinations was no trouble for Deku. However, the strain of trying to get to Kaminari before anything happened to him was wearing thin on her psyche. She hoped that this last phone would somehow lead her to Kaminari before this Jim fellow, whoever he was, got tired of waiting. She'd heard of Razor Sharp before, but she just couldn't deduce who Jim was. That aside, she had little trouble getting to this phone before it rang. When she picked it up, however, nobody answered. Hello, still no answer. At this point, Deku was breaking out in a sweat, fearing that they might have gotten tired already. The $5 million Midoriya handed over. Deku turned around and saw Razor Sharp, an auburn-haired man of average height, whose hero costume was a silver bodysuit with a number of angular edges. Bob Razor Sharp Gunderson quirk, razors, can sprout razors from his body, but suffers an iron deficiency if he uses the quirk too often. Standing next to him was Kaminari, who was all bound up, and Deeku saw a chestnut-haired man wearing a dark blue bodysuit with blood-red stripes, who had a couple of large canisters attached to his back. She knew that this must have been the Gsym that Razor Sharp was talking about. 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝐻𝐻's quirk, aerosol, can emit various liquids from his body in the form of aerosol sprays, but gets dehydrated quickly. Wait, Midoriya ... You're not actually gonna hand the money over to him, are ya? Said Kaminari. Shut up. Razor Sharp gave a hard shove to Kaminari. Of course she's gonna give us the money, cause she's a good girl. Good girl. Those very words chilled Deeku to her core, knowing that those were the exact same words that Captain Famous said to her when he tried to rape her. Nevertheless, she kept her face as cold as possible as she handed the suitcase over. Razor Sharp opened it and took out a bundle of bills, flicking through them to make sure they weren't serialized, while Spraykin sprayed them with one of his aerosols to make sure they weren't marked. Satisfied, Razor Sharp put the bills back in and closed the suitcase. Good. Gsym, untie Kaminari. Spraykin undid Kaminari's restraints and gave him a hard shove towards Deeku, who had some words for Razor Sharp. This does not end here. There'll always be people like me to expose your corrupt actions, so you'd better watch out. Razor Sharp put on a deadly smirk. I wouldn't bet on it, Chicky. See, I've got more influence than I know what to do with. He pulled out a cell phone. Oh, and just to make sure you don't get any funny ideas, I'm posting the evidence of what you did to Captain Famous all over the internet. No, before Razor Sharp could expose the truth about what happened to Captain Famous, his phone blew up in his hands, and shortly after, the loud boom of a rifle shot echoed across the pier. What the hell? Before Razor Sharp could do anything else, another shot struck him in the head, and his fellow heroes got into fighting position, some focusing on Deeku and Kaminari. Others, like Spraykin, tried to determine where the sniper was. It came from that direction. Spraykin pointed towards the Intrepid Sea, Air and Space Museum. Let's check it out. Spraykin and a couple of other heroes headed off in that direction, but another shot struck one of the aerosol canisters on his back, causing a huge explosion, while another one of Deeku's fellow heroes came in like a bat out of hell. Howitzer impact. Kakin delivered a seismic blow to one of Razor Sharp's fellow heroes, and Kirishima came in from the entrance to the pier. Kaminari then finished another one off with an electric shock, and that was enough to shock the remaining heroes. Wait, we give up. The remaining heroes put their hands up, and Kakin, Kirishima, Kaminari, and Deeku worked to restrain them. Meanwhile, Deeku had some choice words for Kakin and Kirishima. What were you thinking? I told you not to follow me. What if Kaminari was killed? Don't look at me. It's not my goddamn fault, said Kakin. Deeku clenched her fists. Then whose is it? I did it. Todoroki had ice surfed in, wielding a heckler and cocked G3SG divided by 1. Deeku stomped over to him and thrust her index finger in his face. What is your problem, Todoroki? I gave you a simple order, and you had no right to contradict it. What do you have to say for yourself? Todoroki blushed. I'm sorry, He averted his gaze. I was worried about your safety. Please don't be mad at me. Deeku glared at Todoroki. While she was still mad at him and everybody else for contradicting her orders, she liked him too much to be mad at him for long. All right, I'll forgive it once, but please stay behind next time, okay? Todoroki nodded. Okay. Todoroki gave Deeku a big hug, causing her to gasp. Nevertheless, she returned the hug, causing Kirishima and Kaminari to let out a collective "Oh, you know what? I'm so happy to be alive that I'm gonna hug her too," said Kaminari. Hey, let me join in, too, said Kirishima. Deeku blushed. Guys, Kirishima and Kaminari joined in on the group hug. Though flustered by all the attention, Deeku smiled, knowing that she had a group of fellow heroes that she could count on. Oh, what the heck, said Deeku. About the only one not hugging her was Kakin, who stood aside with his arms crossed. Deeku even took notice of this. What's wrong, Kakin? Don't you want to hug your old friend Deeku? Why the crap would I want to hug you? You're just an overrated piece of broccoli. Deeku giggled. Okay, you definitely need a hug. Kakin waved his arms around. No, wait a minute. Before Kakin could get away, Deeku gave him a big hug, causing him to blush. Kirishima and Kaminari giggled when they saw this. Even Todoroki couldn't help but smile. I hate this, said Kakin. Even if Kakin was unhappy about his rival giving him a big hug, he had to admit he too was grateful that Kaminari was alive. After work, Deeku headed back to her apartment, where she got ready for her date with Todoroki by freshening up her makeup and hair. As for her outfit, she put on a white Halston dress and matching high-heel shoes. She left her apartment and headed out to the parking lot, only to see Todoroki's Oldsmobile parked next to her Caprice. Todoroki himself was wearing a white suit with a light blue button-down shirt, red tie and black leather dress shoes. 𝗧𝗪 beamed with happiness when she saw him. "Todoroki, you look so handsome." Todoroki smiled. "Speak for yourself." "You look stunning, Midoriya." 𝗧𝗪 giggled. "Are we going to head out or what?" "As you wish, my lovely maiden." Todoroki drove 𝗧𝗪 over to the Infinity Disco, located on 653 Broadway, the former location of Faf's beer cellar and, at one point, an envelope factory. Barring the antique facade, the only indication that the club existed was the black door with the number 653 painted in white. Already, there was quite a line of people waiting to gain entry to the club, and the street was lined with cars. Fortunately, as usually happens in media set in New York, Todoroki found a spot for his 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Once they got out, 𝗧𝗪 and Todoroki joined the throngs of people hoping to get up and boogie tonight. It felt like the line went off into infinity, but eventually, 𝗧𝗪 and Todoroki were able to gain admittance to the club. No small feat considering that it was usually members only, with non-members being admitted if there was room. Inside Infinity, the block-long dance floor was pitch dark save for a crapload of neon lighting. The first example of this being the neon phallus that greeted dancers as soon as they entered the club. Perhaps the most prominent examples of neon were the 4 disco balls hanging from the ceiling, each surrounded by 3 neon rings of different colors, plus the 4 columns near the bar surrounded by progressively larger neon rings. A row of multicolored chase lights graced the ceiling as well. And as if there wasn't enough neon, the walls were also lined with arch-shaped mirrors accented by neon. Staring into one of these mirrors made the neon-accented disco balls appear to go on forever, hence the club's name. To get the dancers going, the DJ was currently spinning Fasten Seatbelt by Space. At first, the slow, piano-accented intro proved to be deceiving, but 𝗧𝗪 went along with it and attempted to slow dance with Todoroki. But there was one problem. 𝗧𝗪, I don't know how to dance." "It's okay, Todoroki. Just follow my lead." Todoroki did his best to sway to the music with 𝗧𝗪. He accidentally stepped on her feet once or twice, but he seemed to be doing a manageable job of it. Then, the drum beat really picked up, and when the high-energy synth bass line kicked in, 𝗧𝗪 really got into the groove. Todoroki was bewildered by the sudden change in pace, and still not entirely acquainted with the act of disco dancing. He very nearly froze up. However, after a brief look at the other dancers, he decided to fake it, first by doing a simple 2-step pattern. As the song wore on, Todoroki decided to make up his own moves. And not only did it become apparent that he actually had a sense of rhythm, but nobody cared exactly how he danced, least of all 𝗧𝗪, who actually seemed to be impressed by his dancing, so much so that she grabbed him by the hands and joined him in the groove. In this exact moment, they forgot all about their troubles. To 𝗧𝗪, her attempted rape at the hands of Captain Famous was nothing more than a faint memory. Similarly, Todoroki had all but forgotten about the untimely death of his father. All they knew was that they were united in a heavenly swirl of peace, love and neon, accompanied by songs such as High by Peter Moser's music, Action by Emily Woods and Fever by Sylvester. All they wanted to do was dance, dance, dance the night away. However, by the time the DJ was spinning Give Me Love by 𝗂𝗏, 𝗧𝗪 stopped dancing, much to Todoroki's confusion. "Why are you stopping now? I'm getting thirsty. Why don't we hit the bar?" "Very well." And so, 𝗧𝗪 and Todoroki danced their way through the crowds and up to the bar. "What'll it be?" asked the bartender, a brunette with mid-length hair. "I'll have a Coke," said 𝗧𝗪. "I'll have a ginger ale," said Todoroki. Todoroki reached for his wallet, but 𝗧𝗪 was quicker in paying for their drinks. "You didn't think you were always going to be a gentleman, did you?" 𝗧𝗪 giggled. "Well," Todoroki shrugged. 𝗧𝗪 held out her glass. "To heroism. What's this about?" "You mean you've never toasted before?" "What's that?" "Hold up your glass like I'm doing, and then clink yours against mine." "Why do we do that?" "Basically, it's a way of wishing each other good health." "Okay then." Todoroki held his glass out as 𝗧𝗪 had instructed him, and they toasted, after which they indulged in the sugary, effervescent goodness of their soda. Both of them made eye contact with each other as they quenched their thirsts, getting enjoyment out of seeing the disco lighting reflecting in each other's eyes. It was an otherworldly experience for both of them. After they finished their drinks, 𝗧𝗪 and Todoroki got back on the dance floor, by which time the DJ was spinning Dancing in a Disco by 𝗓𝗏. At this point, Todoroki was feeling much better about himself, not only as a dancer, but as a person in general. After 𝗧𝗪 and Todoroki danced to The Real Thing by Daddy Dewdrop, they left Infinity. "Midoriya, thanks for suggesting this. Up until now, I never knew how much fun disco dancing could be." 𝗧𝗪 smiled. "Glad you had fun. Always be open to new things. That's my policy." Todoroki opened the driver's door of his 𝗧𝗵𝗲. "I'll try to remember that from now on." After Todoroki and 𝗧𝗪 got in and buckled up, the former started the car and drove off. "So, got any other plans, Midoriya?" 𝗧𝗪 stroked her chin. "I dunno, what do you want to do?" I'm not sure, although you did say that you're into video games, so if it's alright, why don't we hang out and play video games together tomorrow? I like that idea. Let's do it. Thus far, the drive was going smoothly. Then, on East Houston Street, Todoroki noticed some flashing lights in his rearview mirror. Figuring the NYPD wanted a piece of him, he pulled over and parked his car. Shortly thereafter, one of the officers, a brunette of average height and build, approached the driver's side of the car, mag light in hand, shining it at Todoroki, who was barely fazed by the light. Excuse me, but do you know why I pulled you over? Todoroki shook his head. No, I don't. One of your brake lights is out. Impossible, I had those checked today. License, registration, and insurance, please. 𝗧𝐿 opened the glove box and handed the appropriate paperwork to Todoroki, who handed it to the officer. She headed back to her RMP. Todoroki, you seem worried, said 𝗧𝐿. Is everything okay? Why would I be worried? They don't have my address. I falsified my renewal. I put 1 East 161st Street. 1 East 161st Street. That's Yankee Stadium. Meanwhile, the two officers were looking up Todoroki's license information on the RMP's in-car computer, which turned up the following info. Todoroki, Shoto, New York license, 001-111-989 status, currently under suspension, warrants outstanding. First-degree murder, discharge of a weapon in a public place, criminal possession of a firearm, assaulting a police officer, assaulting a pro-hero, unlawful use of a quirk, illegal parking in a fire zone. Arrest driver. Impound vehicle. The two officers nodded at each other and exited the RMP, guns drawn, using the doors as cover. The passenger, a bald black man, switched the siren to palm mode and grabbed the mic. Driver, you and your passenger are under arrest. With your left hand, take your keys out of the ignition and drop them on the ground. Not wanting to get arrested, Todoroki instead restarted the car, threw the transmission in drive and floored it, much to 𝗧𝐿's chagrin. Todoroki, what the hell are you doing? You're gonna get us both arrested. They won't catch us. I have a supercharged 455 rocket V8. They only have a V6 at most. True to Todoroki's word, his Oldsmobile was easily outpulling the pursuing RMP. However, given the NYC traffic, maintaining such high speeds was difficult, if not outright impossible. Nevertheless, Todoroki let the cold half of his quirk keep his veins frosty as he swerved in and out of traffic, just barely managing to stay ahead of the law, though also causing an accident at the intersection of E. Houston St. and Avenue B, which 𝗧𝐿 looked back on and scolded him for. This is insanity. Stop this right now. I'll stop when I'm sure I've lost them. True to Todoroki's word, he kept the pedal to the metal as he screamed down the street, and he was almost at FDR Drive when another RMP intercepted them at Columbia Street, quickly cranking the wheel. He swerved around the cruiser and tried to finesse the full-sized Oldsmobile as elegantly as he could. Granted, he nearly rammed a taxi in the process, but he got through all right. But he now had a problem in that there was now another unit following him as he sped onto FDR Drive, and that they were most likely radioing in his current location. Nevertheless, he kept a stiff grip on the wheel and a lead foot on the accelerator on FDR Drive. Misfortune shined upon him again as one of the NYPD Highway Patrol's RMPs caught sight of him as he was hauling ass. Damn, we're really in for it now, said Todoroki. Like we weren't in for it before, said 𝗧𝐿. Todoroki ignored 𝗧𝐿's comment and did his best to lose his new pursuer. Unfortunately for him, this Dodge Charger RMP had a V8 engine, so it could easily match the Oldsmobile. Seeing this, Todoroki leaned out the window and fired a few shots at it with his Model 29, managing to blow a couple of holes in the radiator. Sure enough, the engine overheated, and the RMP came to a stop. However, Todoroki kept on going until he was sure he'd lost them. Once he was sure, he proceeded to drive normally. Todoroki, have you gone mad? Said 𝗧𝐿. You can't shoot at the police. Reality check. They explicitly said that both of us were under arrest. I'm not trying to kill them. I'm trying to stop them long enough for us to get away. Well, I want no part of this. Let me out right now. I'm afraid I can't do that, Midoriya. Let me out or I swear to God. Swear to God what? If you leave this car, you stand a very good chance of being arrested. I'm just doing what I can to ensure our chances of losing the police because I care about you. You know, if you really cared about me, you'd let me out of this car. If I tell you why the police are after me, do you promise not to say another word to me about getting out of the car? 𝗧𝐿 glared at Todoroki. As much as she wanted to smack him, he too was a fellow hero, and she did still have the hots for him, so she gave her answer, fine. They think I committed murder, which is utterly false. If it's false, then why did you run? Because I have no interest in getting caught nor seeing your reputation sullied. 𝗧𝐿 crossed her arms. Well, you have a weird way of caring about your friends. I'll make another deal with you. What? If the police find us again, stop the car and let them arrest us, and I promise I'll go with you. I'll even try to get a good lawyer for both of us. Deal. Todoroki shook hands with 𝗧𝐿. Then, around E25th Street, they ran into traffic. Great, said Todoroki. Now they'll catch us for sure. 𝗧𝗂 crossed her arms. Well, considering what you put me through, you deserve it. Todoroki glared at 𝗧𝗂. Is that the way you treat all your employees? Only the ones who show a reckless disregard for the law as well as civilians' health and well-being. Be careful what you say next, Midoriya. I might just reconsider every kind thing I've ever done for you. Right back at you, Todoroki. And so, Todoroki and 𝗧𝗂 did their best to navigate NYC traffic, hoping that the NYPD wouldn't catch up to them again. Thus far, things were going well for them, but Todoroki kept a watchful eye out just in case. Meanwhile, 𝗧𝗂 was left wondering a number of things as she went along with this wild ride. Why he didn't disclose any of this earlier, why she didn't do a more thorough background check on him, and why she was even going along with him on this ride. Sure, he was devilishly handsome, but was getting arrested worth a slice of hot loving? 𝗧𝗂 wasn't too sure, but so far, he hadn't attempted to harm her, and all of his non-verbal cues indicated that he genuinely cared about her, so maybe he was a good guy after all. Then, around 52nd Street, 𝗧𝗂's danger sense was aroused, and her and Todoroki saw an oncoming helicopter with its spotlight shining, and soon enough, it fixed the spotlight on the Oldsmobile. Damn it, said Todoroki. Todoroki, you'd better surrender. Hold on, I think the traffic's clearing up. The traffic was indeed clearing up, and as soon as Todoroki had an opportunity, he put the hammer down again and sped on past the traffic. Unfortunately for him, he attracted the attention of another NYPD Highway Patrol RMP. Just like last time, though, he fired a few shots at it with his Model 29 and put it out of action. However, there was still that chopper to worry about, plus an all-new problem, a black Dodge Charger with red police lights. Todoroki recognized this as one of the NYPD Highway Patrol's unmarked interceptors and knew that not even his Oldsmobile could outrun them. Adding insult to injury, a race-red Ford Mustang was joining the chase as well, which he figured belonged to a pro hero. Midoriya, take the wheel. What? Just do what I say. I'll be back soon enough. Todoroki unbuckled his seatbelt and hopped out the window of his car, upon which he began ice surfing. By now, the Charger Interceptor was right on his tail, so he drew his Model 29 again and shot out two of the tires, causing it to skid out and nearly hit the Mustang. Sure enough, there were two pro heroes in the car, one of whom used a grappling hook quirk to latch onto the Oldsmobile and pull the Mustang closer. Obviously, Todoroki would have none of this, so he used a super hot blast of fire to melt the chain. No easy feat considering the driver of the car used a ninja-like quirk to jump on top of it and shoot throwing stars at Todoroki. Alright, you two are really starting to piss me off. FLASHFIRE fist. Todoroki attempted to punch the ninja hero with a fire-powered left hook, but she dodged out of the way with lightning-fast reflexes, got behind him and held a katana to his neck. Give yourself up or I'll collect your head. Not likely. Todoroki not only used his feet to create ice, but also grabbed the ninja hero with his right hand and iced part of her over, enabling him to break free. He also used the ice on his feet to freeze the Mustang before surfing over to the police helicopter, which he also froze, causing it to go out of control. With that, he headed back to the Oldsmobile and took the wheel from 𝗧𝗂. And once they went over the Willis Avenue Bridge, they were home free. Todoroki pulled his Oldsmobile up to the apartment building where 𝗧𝗂 lived and parked the car. Immediately, 𝗧𝗂 bolted out of the car and headed for the door, and Todoroki headed after her. Midoriya, wait up. Save it, Todoroki. Midoriya, please. I've heard enough from you. I started that agency to make this world a better place, not as a haven for criminals. Midoriya, you don't understand. 𝗧𝗂 headed upstairs to her apartment. Oh, I understand perfectly. You're the kind of guy who has no regard for human life or basic decency. Go away and leave me alone. 𝗧𝗂 unlocked the door to her apartment and headed in, as did Todoroki. Please, I can explain, said Todoroki. 𝗧𝗂 shoved Todoroki against the door. I don't need your explanations. Your recklessness told me everything tonight. As of tomorrow, you're fired. Do you hear me? No, Midoriya. Before you do anything you regret, I beg you, hear me out. 𝗧𝗂 glared at Todoroki, still keeping a death grip on his collar. She still wanted nothing to do with him, but her heart was telling her that she should at least hear what he had to say. This better be good, said 𝗧𝗂. My father was once the #1 hero, Endeavor, taking over after All Might's retirement. One night, he was conducting a raid on the League of Villains hideout. Unfortunately, he was betrayed and killed by one of his sidekicks. Sure, I hated the man for how he abused my family and I, but he was still my father, and I wanted nothing but vengeance against his killer. After weeks of searching, I found the man who did it and put a bullet through his head. Soon, the NYPD found out about it, and since then, I've been on the run. You were the only person who was kind enough to take me in after that. Oh, 𝗧𝗂 relaxed her grip a bit, and Todoroki put his hands on her shoulders. Midoriya, the day I first met you, I was entranced by your otherworldly beauty. I've kept my eye on you, memorizing every line of your soft face, every curve of your body, the sweet song in your voice. All I could think about since that day is how much I've wanted to be with you. Even if you hate me for what I put you through tonight, it won't change how I feel about you or how much I admire you, or the fact that I think you're the most beautiful woman in the world. I would die for you. Izuko Midoriya, I love you. Todoroki pulled 𝗧𝗂 in and kissed her. She gasped for air the moment his lips met hers and flailed around a little. On one hand, she still didn't want anything to do with him after the high-speed chase they'd been involved in. But on the other hand, he did sort of save her life tonight, and she did think he was devilishly handsome. No pun intended, so she wrapped her arms around him and surrendered to his strong embrace. While he wasn't the first guy she'd been with, he was thus far the one she felt that she could trust the most. All she could think about right now was how lucky she considered herself and how happy she was that he'd come into her life. As if disco dancing hadn't been enough, he'd given her more excitement in one day than she'd seen in most of her life, and she wanted him to lay her down on her bed and do nasty things to her. As she broke away from the kiss, she let him know exactly what she wanted. Todoroki ... make love to me. And that was exactly what 𝗧𝗂 and Todoroki did that night, not caring about anything else. 𝗧𝗂 awoke the next morning to a strange sensation on her neck, and she looked over, only to notice Todoroki nibbling on her neck, moaning as he did so. 𝗬𝗲𝗧𝗪𝐿. 𝗧𝗂 slapped Todoroki until he dislodged himself from her, much to his confusion. Why did you do that? Look, I know you're weird, but do you have to be that weird? But I enjoy nibbling people's necks. I'd love to have you nibble mine, too. Well, next time, ask permission before you do that. Todoroki smiled. Love you too, Midoriya. 𝗧𝗂 stared at Todoroki. Then, she broke down smiling herself. Oh, I can't be mad at you. Even if you did get me involved in a high-speed chase last night, making love with you was one of the happiest moments of my life. Todoroki raised an eyebrow. Really? Really? Now come on, let's get breakfast. After getting dressed, 𝗧𝗂 fixed breakfast for both of them, namely chicken and waffles, which Todoroki expressed his approval of. This is very delicious. I'm surprised no one's made you their wife yet. 𝗧𝗂 giggled. Oh, stop. What? Were you born this much of a flirt or did you learn it somewhere? Todoroki shrugged. I don't know. I guess I can't help myself around women I like, I'll say. 𝗧𝗂 and Todoroki continued eating their breakfast. Then 𝗧𝗂 frowned and sighed. Midoriya, what's wrong? Why are you sad? Oh, nothing. I just recalled a traumatic event. You don't have to talk about it if you don't feel comfortable. I'm here for you if you do decide to talk, though. 𝗧𝗂 gulped. Todoroki ... This isn't easy for me to say, but I met Captain Famous before he died. We went out to a bar together, and afterwards, he ... he tried to rape me. I still have nightmares about the incident, and I feel so guilty and worthless because of what happened. A few tears formed in 𝗧𝗂's eyes. As for Todoroki, he sat there frozen, shocked that anyone could have done anything like this to such a nice young woman. Nevertheless, he knew what to say as he got up from his seat. 𝗧𝗂, I'm sorry that happened to you. Todoroki put a hand on 𝗧𝗂's shoulder. I don't know what it's like to go through something like that, but it's not your fault. If you need anything from me, anything at all, I promise I'll always be here for you. 𝗧𝗂 got up from her seat and looked Todoroki square into his heterochromic eyes. Oh, Todoroki. 𝗧𝗂 gave Todoroki a big hug and cried. Despite not being used to somebody like her, usually so calm and at ease, breaking down like this, he kept himself together as he returned the hug. All he could think about during this time was how sorry he felt for her and how angry he was that anyone would commit such a heinous act against her. Even so, he also enjoyed holding her because aside from the fact that she felt so soft, warm and cuddly, it gave him a great sense of satisfaction to be there for her when she needed it the most. At this point, he wouldn't dare leave her. 𝗧𝗂 couldn't imagine life without Todoroki either. For so long, she thought she was the kind of woman who could stand on her own, finding the concept of romance to be frightening and confusing. The more time she spent with this bicolor hero, though, the more she came to see the value not only in having someone to share in romantic activities with, but a shoulder to cry on when life became too much for her. Plus, judging by the hold he had on her, she could tell that he really knew how to give a good hug. Eventually, she stopped crying, but kept holding on to him. She couldn't think of anything more she needed right now. Eventually, she backed away, but kept looking into his eyes. Thank you so much. 𝗧𝗂 smiled. That meant a lot to me. Todoroki smiled. You're welcome. How are you feeling now? 𝗧𝗂 frowned. I won't lie, this still hurts. Her smile returned. On the other hand, it hurts a lot less because of you. I don't expect it to ever stop hurting, but that hug felt good for me, too. Actually, I have to tell you something. Yes, I don't want to get married, but at the same time, I could never leave you. You make my life complete. 𝗧𝗂 giggled and ruffled Todoroki's hair. Oh, stop. Todoroki frowned. What? Seriously, though? That was a really sweet thing of you to say. As a matter of fact, you're the sweetest guy I know. Why, you really think so? Even after I expressed satanic ideals and wrongfully involved you in a high-speed chase. I won't lie, I'm still a little mad about you almost getting me arrested. However, since you make me so happy, I forgive you. Also, I take back what I said about you being fired. Todoroki's smile returned. Thank you. Let's not stand around for too long, though. We do have to get to work today. Right. Todoroki ended up being the one to drive Deku to work in his car, with the radio blasting Can't Live Without You by Scorpion. Midoriya, please, call me Deku. Bakugo calls you that a lot, but why? He originally came up with it as an insult, short for defenseless Izuko, but another friend of mine liked it and thought it had a real can-do vibe, so I took it as a source of pride. Todoroki nodded. Right. That aside, I must ask you, are you ... are you an angel? Deku laughed and playfully shoved Todoroki. Shut up. What? I know you love me, but do you have to butter me up like that? But you're not bread, so why would I need butter? Deku kept laughing. Oh, you have a wonderful sense of humor. But I was being serious. Okay, Lavroki, just what do you find so attractive about me that you think I'm such an angel? Well, you saved me. Where once I had been a poor, lost sheep looking for a way out of potentially becoming a villain, I found you, and I found myself in the process. Deku smiled. Okay, I'll go with that. Eventually, Todoroki and Deku pulled up to the HQ of her agency. When they got inside, they found Kaken waiting for them. 𝐒𝐭𝐽𝐶HAN. Deku ran up to Kaken and gave him a big hug. Deku, why the crap are you hugging me? What? I'm in a really good mood today. Besides, isn't a girl allowed to hug her best friend? But you never ... Wait a sec. What the crap? Did you have sex last night? Deku giggled. Wouldn't you like to know, Kaken? Kaken growled. I hate this. Fortunately for Kaken, Deku let go soon enough. Shortly thereafter, Kirishima and Kaminari entered. Hi guys. Deku smiled and waved at Kirishima and Kaminari. Wow, Midoriya, you're wicked pleasant this morning, said Kirishima. I mean, not that you're not pleasant to be around, but, yeah, with a smile that bright, I could have sworn you had sex last night, said Kaminari. Deku giggled. Well then, now that we've gotten the good humor out of the way, let's get on with today's briefing. Meanwhile, on East 156th Street, at the Altona Apartments, a complement of NYPD officers in tactical gear had gathered, along with Tatsuyuki Tokoname, better known as the pro-hero 𝗧𝗵𝗲. This, gentlemen, is the elegant abode of one Shoto Todoroki, said 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Well, thanks for your help, Mr. 𝗧𝗵𝗲, said the ESU team leader, a black man with a mustache. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 smiled. You know, I kind of like the Yankee Stadium bit. Yeah ... real cute. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 entered the building first, and the ESU officers followed him in. They ended up going to apartment 23. Stand back. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 slid through the door, and the ESU officers burst in with their guns drawn. Todoroki's apartment was quite clean, though it featured lots of satanic artifacts plus posters of old-school metal bands such as Judas Priest, Saxon, and Anvil. An extensive search of the place also turned up a closet full of guns, including items such as machine guns, grenade launchers, and rocket launchers. Most importantly, one ESU officer found a critical piece of evidence. Hey Sarge, look at this. Sergeant Glenn Mulberry, the ESU leader, headed over. What is it, Sanders? Officer Lena Sanders held up a piece of mail. I think I found a clue regarding Todoroki's whereabouts. Give it here, then. Mulberry took the mail, which had the address of the Deku agency on it. Well, I'll be goddamned. Looks like Deku's not so heroic after all. On the way back from their latest mission, Deku made a stop at Variety Coffee Roasters. What are we doing here? Asked Kaken. Kaken, you, Kirishima, and Kaminari head back to HQ. Todoroki and I are paying a little visit to someone, said Deku. Right. Kaken, Kirishima, and Kaminari headed back to HQ, while Todoroki wondered just what the heck was going on. Deku, why didn't you send me along? Deku smiled. Because there's someone I want you to meet. Okay. Todoroki followed Deku into the coffee shop. All Might. Deku ran up to All Might and gave him a big hug, which he gladly returned. Immediately, Todoroki recognized him. Wait, you're the famous All Might. You look far different from how I remember you. All Might smiled. Let's just say the last embers of One for All were extinguished in me, but live on in Midoriya. Now, who might you be? My name is Shoto Todoroki. I'm one of Deku's co-workers and also her boyfriend. All Might got up from his seat. So you're the son of Endeavor. Nice to meet you. Todoroki and All Might shook hands. Listen, Todoroki, I just wanted to express my deepest condolences for what happened to your father, said All Might. He was a great hero, and the world is a lesser place without him. Todoroki nodded. Thank you. My father was a cold, unforgiving man, but relations had improved greatly between us, and I had managed to forgive him by the time he died. He smiled. Of course, now that I found 𝗧𝗂, things have gotten a lot better. Todoroki wrapped an arm around 𝗧𝗂, causing her to yelp. Todoroki, I'm glad you love me so much, but do you mind letting me go so I can get our drinks? She smiled. As you wish, my darling. Todoroki let 𝗧𝗂 go, and she went to get their drinks while he sat down. Tell me about yourself, Todoroki. What made you want to become a hero? Asked All Might. It wasn't so much a want so much as my father forced me into it because he wanted me to be a weapon to surpass you. However, when I first heard about 𝗧𝗂 and what she was doing, I decided that I wanted to be a hero for her rather than my father. I've always thought she was the most beautiful woman in the world, but until recently, I never thought I'd have a chance with her. Well, I'm proud of what you're doing. Midoriya has told me about you before, and you seem like an upstanding hero. Todoroki shook his head. Too bad the NYPD doesn't see it that way. All Might leaned in closer. Why, what's the matter? After my father was killed, I found the man who did it, a former sidekick of his, and killed him out of revenge. Since then, the NYPD's been trying to arrest me for murder. Why don't you turn yourself in, then? I can get you a good lawyer. Todoroki glared at All Might. I'll turn myself in when I'm dead. All Might said nothing else about the subject, though he had a feeling that 𝗧𝗂 was in for a hell of a ride. After coffee, 𝗧𝗂 and Todoroki headed back to HQ. The rest of the gang was waiting for them. Any updates, Kaken? Asked 𝗧𝗂. Kaken shook his head. Nothing yet. Kaminari and I got nothing either, said Kirishima. Do you mind if I ask who you were going to meet? Asked Kaminari. Oh, just an old friend, said 𝗧𝗂. Is this who I think? 𝗧𝗂 smiled. Yes, Kaken, it is. 𝗵𝗃 figures. Well then, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's. Just then, there was knocking on the door. I'll get it. 𝗧𝗂 headed to the door. Who is it? 𝗧𝗂, this is the NYPD. Open up. 𝗧𝗂 peeked through the peephole in the door, and sure enough, she saw some NYPD ESU officers standing there. Excuse me, but what is this about? Just open up, we want to talk to you. Okay. 𝗧𝗂 cautiously opened the door, and the ESU officers burst in with their guns drawn, much to her chagrin. Hey, what the hell is this about? 𝗧𝗂, you and all your fellow heroes are under arrest for harboring a known criminal, said Sergeant Mulberry. What the crap? Exclaimed Kaken. We don't have any known criminals here. For your information, Shoto Todoroki is wanted for first-degree murder, resisting arrest, assaulting a pro-hero and wanton motor vehicle assault, said another ESU officer. Kirishima's eyes widened. What? No way. Yeah, Todoroki's not the kind to hurt other heroes. Is he? Kaminari put his index finger on his chin. We have evidence that proves otherwise, said Mulberry. I don't care much for your so-called evidence, said Todoroki. Prepare to die, assholes. No Todoroki. 𝗧𝗂 put her hands out, palms facing forwards. All right, officers, we'll come quietly. As much as they didn't want to do so, Todoroki and the rest of the Hero Enforcement Regiment obeyed 𝗧𝗂 and let the officers cuff them and give them their rights. 𝗧𝗂 and co. were taken down to the 40th Precinct House on Alexander Ave, and after being booked, they were locked in a special holding cell for people with quirks, located underground in what used to be a Cold War bomb blast shelter. It was secure enough to hold even the ninth holder of One for All. Fortunately for them, they were kept in a separate cell away from would-be villains. However, even this was not enough to placate Kaken. What the crap? Todoroki. Why the crap didn't you tell us you were a villain? Todoroki crossed his arms. I strongly resent being called a villain, Bakugo. The truth is, the NYPD wanted to arrest me simply for killing the man who murdered my father. Kirishima's eyes widened. Whoa, heavy. Why the crap didn't you tell us before? Yelled Kaken. Todoroki loosened his stance. Well, at first I was afraid. I was petrified. And no quoting songs, either. 𝗧𝗂 put her hand down on Kaken's shoulder. Kaken, enough. I'm sure Todoroki had his reasons for not disclosing his criminal record, even though I wish he would have done so sooner. Todoroki averted his gaze. I'm sorry I didn't disclose that sooner, 𝗧𝗂. I tried, but I never got a good opportunity. 𝗧𝗂 gently put her hand on Todoroki's shoulder. It's okay, Todoroki. You did what you had to. Considering how you saved my life recently, I couldn't be mad at you. Saved your life, said Kaminari. What do you mean, Midoriya? 𝗧𝗂 frowned and cleared her throat. Everyone, there's a confession I have to make. It's about Captain Famous. What about him? Said Kirishima. The night that he died, I met him at a local bar, and we had a fun time. But then, when I walked home with him 𝗧𝗂 started forming tears in her eyes. He tried to rape me and I accidentally killed him. Kaken, Kirishima and Kaminari let out simultaneous gasps when they heard this revelation. Oh my god, exclaimed Kaminari. Kirishima clenched his fists. That bastard. He used to be one of my favorite heroes. Now I see why you founded this agency in the first place, Midoriya. 𝐭𝐿, however, as explosive as he was, had a different approach to the situation as he calmly walked up to Deeku and put his hands on her shoulders. Deeku, I know you and I haven't always seen eye to eye, but I'm gonna say this, as much as I hate your guts, no one should touch you like that. You deserve better than that. If you ever need to talk about this, I promise I'll listen. You're my friend. Izuku. Deeku held her hands up to her mouth. 𝐭𝐿. Deeku broke out crying as she gave a big hug to 𝐭𝐿. Despite being shocked by the whole thing, he gratefully returned her gesture, even if he had treated her like garbage because he thought of her as a weakling, and then became jealous of her power. She was still a valued friend. She had done so much for him, and he just wanted to make up for every wrongdoing he ever committed against her. Granted, it was tough to think about anything else but being angry at the guy who tried to rape her, but still, it made him feel better about himself knowing that he could be here for her in her hour of need. He wasn't the only one, either. Todoroki, Kirishima, and Kaminari all joined in on giving Deeku one big group hug. At this moment, Deeku considered herself the luckiest girl in the world, even if she was feeling horribly messed up. And even if it was going to take some time for her to get over the incident completely, it meant a lot to her that she had such a loving, supportive group of fellow heroes who wanted to help her out any way they could. It didn't matter to her that they couldn't completely fix everything. They were here for her, and that was all she really wanted. It took her what felt like forever to stop crying, but even after she did, everyone continued hugging her. This gave her hope that one day, she could feel some sort of normalcy after the trauma she'd experienced. Thank you, all of you. You're welcome, said Kirishima and Kaminari. Anything for my best friend, said 𝐭𝐿. You deserve to be happy, said Todoroki. While everyone was being there for Deeku, all of them got an unexpected surprise. Midoriya, you and your friends are free to go. An NYPD officer had unlocked the door to their cell. Wah! Deeku dropped her jaw. A friend of yours posted bail for all of you. Now get out of here. Deeku and Co. went to collect their personal belongings when they found a familiar face awaiting them. All Might, said Deeku. Yes, I posted bail for you. Thank you. Deeku gave All Might a big hug, which he gladly returned. He did, however, have solemn news for them. I know all of you are excited to be free, but they told me to tell you that this does come with a condition. You can still operate as heroes, but you can't operate under your old agency. If you do, they'll lock you up for good. Is that clear? What the crap? Yelled 𝐭𝐿. I was actually enjoying this, too. All Might made a downwards waving motion with his hand. It's okay, Bakugo. I know you felt like you were making a difference, and to be honest, I'm proud of all of you for doing your part to keep people safe. What you are doing is a very noble mission. Even so, I don't want to see any of you get arrested again, got it? As much as it sucks to say this, I agree with All Might, said Kirishima. It's too bad the cops don't agree with us. But how are we gonna stop corrupt heroes now? Asked Kaminari. Well, I have all of your numbers, and you have mine, so we can stay in contact, said Deeku. Even if we can't legally operate as the Hero Enforcement Regiment, I'll figure out some way to clear our names. You have my word. Deeku put her hand over her heart. I don't know about the rest of you, but I trust Deeku, said Todoroki. So do I. 𝐭𝐿 clenched his fists. Kirishima pumped his fist. Me too. Me three. Kaminari pumped his other fist. All Might smiled. Even if he wasn't sure what they were up to, he trusted Deeku all the way. As the 5 heroes were exiting the 40th Precinct house, Todoroki followed Deeku. Why are you following me, Todoroki? Oh, I wanted to hang out with you. Deeku smiled. Thanks, but I really need some time alone right now. I do appreciate the thought, though. Deeku kissed Todoroki, who gave her the strongest hug he could manage. Love you. Deeku waved at Todoroki as she headed away. At home, Deeku was preparing to make another one of her voice diaries when her phone gave her an error saying that the memory was full. Deeku investigated the cause of the problem, only to find an audio recording that was at least 2 hours long. She opened it up, only to discover that it had not only somehow been recording the night she met Captain Famous, but also that it had recorded the entire incident of her near rape. While she was traumatized by having to listen to it again, it also gave her a good idea. I've got it. With this, Deeku prepared to enact the next phase of her plan. Deeku slept okay that night, barring another nightmare about the incident with Captain Famous. However, when she woke up this morning, she felt clear. Granted, she decided to lay low for a bit to avoid any more trouble from the NYPD, but still, she felt confident that she could get her name, as well as those of her fellow HER employees, cleared. Having backed up the audio recording of the incident to her laptop, a flash drive in the cloud, she just needed to figure out how to use it. Then, while eating breakfast, she was watching the news when a special report came on. Good morning, everyone, said Cheyenne Smith. In today's top news story, a group of villains attempted to assassinate Mayor Lucille Matsuda at a banquet of top New York City officials. It was only thanks to the efforts of the pro-hero named 𝗬𝗵𝗲 that her life was spared. 𝗵𝗃 𝗔𝗨𝗧𝗛𝗡 allows the user to cloak themselves as well as anyone in the immediate vicinity, but it causes the user to become tired if they use it for too long, necessitating a recharge. Next, the camera switched to 𝗬𝗵𝗲, a tall, clean-shaven guy with black hair and a flat-top haircut and brown eyes. His hero costume was a gray bodysuit with a dark gray cloak. It wasn't easy to stop those villains, and trying to protect the mayor at the same time. But I gave it my all like any hero would be expected to do in times of crisis, and I'm proud that I could be of assistance to the mayor. Deeku tuned out of the rest of the news report, her mind too focused on 𝗬𝗵𝗲. She couldn't exactly place her finger on it, but her people-reading skills were telling her that he wasn't all that he seemed. Thus, she called Todoroki. "Hello. Todoroki, it's Deeku." "Ah, hello there, my sweet little green bean. How are you?" Deeku giggled. Flirting aside, I'm all right except for the fact that the police are watching us. And you. To be honest, I feel extraordinarily guilty not only about leading you on a wild police chase, but getting all of us arrested and causing our agency to be broken up. Other than that, I'm doing all right. Listen, Todoroki, please, call me Shoto, you sexy young woman. Deeku laughed. Okay, enough flirting. Anyways, I'm calling because I need a favor from you. Oh, what sort of favor? I need you to look up as much information as you possibly can on someone named Brendan Giordano, aka the pro-hero 𝗬𝗵𝗲. But I'm afraid I can't do that. Why not? Deeku, you know the police will put us in prison if we attempt to do anything like that. I'm not asking you to do this as part of the Deeku agency. I'm asking you to do this because I love you and you're one of the few people I can trust right now. Well, all right. What will you do? I have an idea. Though not particularly in the mood to go out, Deeku put on her leather jacket and high-heel boots, looking for a bar to head up. She knew a bit about 𝗬𝗵𝗲, but she didn't know exactly where he'd be. Nevertheless, she decided to check out a bar called the Long Island Bar, in operation for over 50 years on Atlantic Avenue, halfway between Brooklyn Heights and Cobble Hill. It not only served patrons a variety of food and drink, but it was a popular hangout spot for pro-heroes, hence why she chose to go here. As she stepped into this traditional, retro-style bar, she was greeted with the sound of Domino by Kiss playing from the sound system. She took a table near the door, usually not an easy feat since the bar was usually very crowded. Soon enough, a waitress, a plus-size redhead, came over to her with a menu. Hey Deeku, welcome to the Long Island Bar. My name is Melody. What can I get you for a drink? Everything's on the house, you know. Deeku chuckled. Thanks, but you don't have to give me anything for free. I feel like helping all of you out is reward enough. Anyways, I'll have a Coke. Also, Deeku beckoned Melanie over and whispered to her, please don't tell anyone I'm here. Right. Melanie gave a thumbs up and went to get Deeku's drink, which didn't take too long. In the meantime, she perused the menu. So, are you all set to order or do you need a few minutes? Let's see. I'll have a fried chicken sandwich. Okay, sounds good. Melanie left to get Deeku's food. Shortly thereafter, 𝗬𝗵𝗲 entered, along with another hero whom Deeku didn't recognize. This hero was wearing a black dress with gold trim and black steel-toe boots with tan laces. They took the table right next to Deeku's, so she whipped out her phone and pretended to scroll through apps. In reality, she was recording 𝗬𝗵𝗲 and the other hero, hoping to get some crispy, juicy nuggets from them regarding Mayor Matsuda. So, how'd it go, 𝗬𝗵𝗲? Not bad. The public fell for that hook, line and sinker. How's your end holding up, black hole? So far, so good. If I can work out a few specifics, and if I can sort a couple of things out with Coagulator, then our plan to assassinate the mayor should go off like clockwork. Hey, keep it down. You want to give the game away. It was too late. Deeku smiled, knowing that she had enough dirt on 𝗬𝗵𝗲 to put him away for good. However, she delayed making her move for now, for she knew that there was someone higher up connected to him. After finishing her meal and paying for it, Deeku left the bar and heard the Superman theme again, so she answered her phone. Hello. Deeku, it's Shoto. I've been doing some research on 𝗬𝗵𝗲 just as you've asked. Meet me outside the NYPD 40th Precinct, outside the police station. But that's suicide. Think about it this way. That's the last place the police would think to look. Well, okay, I'll meet you over there. Deeku headed for the 40th Precinct. And shortly after, Todoroki's Oldsmobile pulled up. Get in. Todoroki got in the car. And they drove off while Swords and Tequila by Riot was playing over the radio. What do you have, Shoto? I got as much as I could on 𝗬𝗵𝗲. He's an employee of the No Sweat Agency, headed by a man named Marion Newman, better known as the pro-hero Coagulator. 𝗬𝗵𝗲 was embroiled in a scandal a few years back where it was alleged that he beat his then-girlfriend. But he was released on a technicality. Coagulators know better, either. According to what I found on him, he was supposedly involved in a money laundering scheme with a Mexican cocaine cartel, but the police could never quite find enough evidence to make a solid connection. There's more stuff in this envelope. Todoroki handed Deeko a manila envelope, which she opened and perused as he drove her to her apartment. When he stopped, she put everything away. Thanks for the ride, Shoto. Todoroki smiled. You're always welcome, Deeko. Deeko and Todoroki kissed each other. Oh, and you and I never had this meeting, okay, said Todoroki. Deeko smiled and gave a thumbs up. You can count on me. After Deeko and Todoroki parted ways, Deeko put on more formal attire, a dark blue suit jacket and matching pencil skirt, a white blouse and dark blue high-heel shoes. She also tied her long, fluffy 82nd style hair into a bushy ponytail and then made a call to City Hall, New York City Hall. Hi, this is Deeko. I'd like to see Mayor Matsuda. She's in a meeting right now. You'll have to wait. It's really important that I see her, but if you insist, I'll wait. Please get a spot for me after she's done. Okay. The receptionist smiled and nodded. I'll see what I can do. Deeko hung up and sat around for a little bit until her phone rang again. Hello, Deeko, this is the mayor's office. Mayor Matsuda will see you now. Okay. Deeko headed to the New York City Hall, where she met with Matsuda. Hello Deeko. What sort of business brings you here? Mrs. Mayor, you're in danger. The No Sweat Agency is trying to carry out an assassination plot against you. Matsuda stroked her chin. That's certainly a terrifying prospect. I presume you have evidence to back this up. Deeko pulled out her phone. This is a recording of a meeting between 𝗬𝗵𝗲 and another hero. Deeko played the video she'd recorded earlier. Matsuda's eyes widened when she saw it. Seems overwhelming. I'm in your hands. What will you do now? Before I do anything else, there's something else I should show you. Deeko played the recording of the incident with Captain Famous, edited to remove extraneous data, of course. Oh my dear, exclaimed Matsuda. I'm sorry you went through that. Mrs. Mayor, with all due respect, I would like you to reauthorize my agency's right to operate so that we may take down the No Sweat Agency. Then you and the Deeko Agency are hereby authorized to take them down. Deeko bowed. Thank you so much, Mrs. Mayor. Matsuda smiled. You're welcome, Deeko. I'm honored to have a hero like you keeping our citizens safe. I'm glad. Have a good day, Mrs. Mayor. You too. Deeko left the office and phoned Kaken. Who the hell is this? Kaken, it's Deeko. What the crap do you want? Meet me at HQ. Mayor Matsuda authorized us to operate as the Deeko Agency again. What the crap? How the crap did you manage that? Deeko smiled. Let's just say Todoroki was a big help. All right, I'll go with ya. See ya at HQ. Right, goodbye. Bye. And with that, it was time for the Deeko Agency's comeback. After letting her hair down and changing into her hero costume, Deeko headed back to HQ, where the rest of the gang was waiting for her. Nice job getting the agency back together, said Kirishima. You can thank Todoroki for that. Deeko typed in something on her phone. Anyways, here's the deal. As you may know, Brendan Giordano, better known as the pro-hero 𝗬𝗵𝗲, has saved Mayor Matsuda from an assassination attempt. However, according to my investigation as well as assistance from Todoroki, this was actually a feint. 𝗬𝗵𝗲, a member of the No Sweat Agency, is actually involved in a plot to assassinate the mayor, as is the head of the agency, Marion Ljungman, better known as Coagulator. They've been accused of various acts of corruption. And unless we do something, this city as we know it, possibly even the world, could be finished. According to data I obtained on the agency, they occupy a top-floor office in the Flatiron Building. Obviously, if we try a full frontal assault, it'll be suicide. We need a distraction. How do you plan to do that? Asked Kaken. I have an idea. Minutes later, the members of the Deeko Agency were riding in a GMC Savannah painted in the familiar white, gray, blue scheme of Con Ed. Kaken was driving, and he was dressed up like a Con Ed worker with a blue hard hat, light blue long-sleeve shirt with name and company patches on the chest, blue jeans and black Caterpillar work boots. Eventually, they reached the Flatiron Building. Kaken parked the van and got out, while Deeko and the rest of the gang waited. In the lobby, Kaken approached the receptionist, a middle-aged redhead of average height. Can I help you? Asked the receptionist. Yeah, my boss sent me to check the breakers. I have a work order right here. Kaken handed a clipboard with a fake work order to the receptionist, who raised an eyebrow at the whole thing. Strange I wasn't told about this, but go ahead. Whatever. Kaken headed for the electrical room, and almost immediately was bamboozled by the equipment. However, thanks to a building plan obtained by Kaminari, he was able to figure out which of the circuits fed power to the office of the No Sweat Agency. Using some of his explosive power, he destroyed that particular circuit. Meanwhile, at the office of the No Sweat Agency, things were going normally when the power cut out. What the? How did that happen? Everyone, stay alert, said Coagulator. This could be a villain attack. Back on ground level, Deeko got a call from Kaken. Deeko, I cut the power. We're good. Right. Deeko turned to everyone else. All right, let's go get them. Kirishima and Kaminari elected to enter the building through the ground level, while Deku and Todoroki used their quirks to bypass the front door entirely and head up to the offices that way. Once they got to the floor that the 𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 agency was located on, Deku used a Detroit Smash to break through one of the windows, and Todoroki blew out one of the windows with his Model 29. The heroes of the 𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 agency, not expecting this, were caught off guard when they entered the building. Oh no, it's an ambush. Wait, that's ... that's 𝐒𝐭𝐴. Stop. We give up. A bunch of heroes put their hands up, seeing that the hero who policed heroes was in their midst. However, a couple of people were undeterred. You don't scare us, Izuko Midoriya. 𝗬𝗵𝗲, let's get her ... and her fugitive friend. Right. Marion coagulator Lungman, quirk, coagulation, can harden his sweat and other bodily fluids into projectiles or a shield, but becomes dehydrated if he overuses it. However, some heroes were too honest for this. No, I won't bow to corruption. Come on, let's show our leader how heroes do things. Yeah, other heroes, however, had different ideas. You traitors, we support our boss no matter how corrupt he is. Let's kill them. Thus, the office broke out into mass bedlam, with hero going against hero, friend turning into foe. However, seeing as he had 𝗬𝗵𝗲 colluding with him, Coagulator was making short work of the rebel forces, as was Black Hole. Stephanie Black Hole Jansen, quirk, Black Hole, can summon a black hole, but only one at a time. Also, larger black holes require more time to summon. Shoto, that woman in the black dress is on Coagulator's side, cried Deku. Stop her. Todoroki swung his Model 29 around quickly and took aim at Black Hole. However, she was able to create a black hole before he blew her head off. 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏 falling. However, Deku wouldn't let Todoroki get sucked in. She used Black Whip to pull him away. It was a bit difficult considering the force of the black hole, but she managed it. By now, any heroes who could stand up to Coagulator and 𝗬𝗵𝗲 were either dead or incapacitated, which would have been a major problem for Deku, and Todoroki had Kaminari, Kaken, and Kirishima not join the fight. Alright, watch me clear this place out. 1,000,000 volts. Kaminari unleashed an electrical storm on the members of the 𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 agency. While he got most of them, 𝗬𝗵𝗏 and Coagulator had been protected by the latter's shield. Duh, what the crap, exclaimed Kaken. Nice job, 𝗵𝗃𝐴CHU. While Coagulator was still firing off sweat projectiles, Todoroki used his ice as cover, and Kirishima used his quirk as protection, too. Midoriya, got any ideas? Said Kirishima. I don't think I can hold this guy off for too long. Hold on. Deku dug in her tool belt and pulled out a pair of infrared goggles, which, when she put them on, saw right through 𝗬𝗵𝗏's quirk. Immediately, she used Black Whip to pull him away. What the hell? Exclaimed Coagulator, holstering his Model 29. Todoroki had an idea for a finishing move, Michigan Ice Monster Smash. Forming some ice around his right fist, Todoroki delivered a powerful haymaker, which not only cut right through Coagulator's projectiles, but also froze him like a popsicle. Todoroki huffed and puffed a bit, relieved that he was still alive. Deku, I got Coagulator. How's 𝗬𝗵𝗏? He's been apprehended. Kaken, damage report. Doesn't look like a lot of these assholes made it. We're gonna need a good supply of body bags. Don't forget an ambulance, too, said Kirishima. Todoroki and Deku convened with each other, and she gave him a big hug. Shoto, I'm so proud of you. It was because of your intel that this operation was possible. Todoroki smiled. You did some good work of your own, my dear green bean. Oh, eventually, Deku and Todoroki let go. Just one question ... said Deku. Yes, that last move you did ... how did you know how to do that? Todoroki held up his right hand. You mean other than watching you do the Detroit Smash? Well, I figured that if I could use my Flash Fire Fist, then the same thing should be possible with my right side. Deku chuckled. Very clever. Hey, can we get the hell out of here already? Said Kaken. I feel stupid wearing this uniform. Almost. We just gotta clear some things up with the police. Todoroki smiled, knowing that not only was his name going to be cleared, but so was everyone else's. Later on, Matsuda held a huge press conference in front of Federal Hall, and not only were local news agencies present, but national and even international news agencies. Matsuda also gave a speech. In light of new evidence against the 𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗏 agency, I hereby pardon Izuko Midoriya and her fellow members of the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 agency. It was thanks to them as well as the decisive actions that they took that we can walk the streets without worrying about whether or not we can trust pro-heroes, and I am grateful that they saved my life. Now, without further ado, I would like to turn the podium over to Deku herself. Everyone gave Deku a round of applause, while she stepped up to the podium as if she'd awaited this moment her whole life. Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary people, I would not only like to thank the heroes working for me for their assistance, but also for all of you for believing in me. Without your support, we couldn't have done what we've done. Having said that, I have a confession to make. This isn't easy, but I was with Captain Famous the night that he died. I was walking to his place with him and he tried to rape me. Naturally, a huge collective gasp emanated from the crowd. 𝗧𝐿 continued, I know this may be hard for all of you to believe given how well liked he was, but it's the truth. I killed him by accident, and since that day, I've been having a lot of trouble living with myself, feeling as though I could have done more to prevent this. Nevertheless, I don't regret what I've done. I started this agency because no woman should ever have to go through what I've gone through. I don't care if any of you hate me, because I'm going to keep standing up for all of you with a smile on my face until I'm no longer able to do so. That's what a real hero should do, and none of you will have anything to fear while I am here. The crowd was stunned briefly, until a few women started chanting 𝗧𝗪𝗧, 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 and within seconds, a few more people joined in ... and a few more ... and finally, the whole crowd was chanting 𝗧𝗪𝗧, 𝗧𝗪𝗧, 𝗧𝗪𝗧. She smiled, knowing that she had the entirety of New York City, possibly even New York State, the USA and the whole world, on her side as well. After the speech, everyone headed back to HQ. Todoroki had a question for 𝗧𝗪𝗧, so 𝗧𝗪𝗧, how do you feel now? 𝗧𝗪𝗧 smiled. Are you kidding? I feel great. Even if the memory of what Captain Famous tried to do to me still haunts me, at least our names have been cleared and we can keep doing what we're doing. Todoroki smiled, too. It does feel great not having to be a fugitive anymore. I'm just glad they gave me my guns back. It took me a lot of time and money to get those together. Why the crap are you using guns? 𝐒𝐻𝐻, yelled Kaken. There's such a thing as quirks, you dumbass. Todoroki kept smiling. Why not? They can be useful supplements to quirks. Kirishima gave a thumbs up. He's got a point. 𝗧𝗪𝗧 and Kaminari burst out laughing, as did Kirishima and Todoroki. Even Kaken couldn't help laughing. From this day forward, heroes would not only be able to walk the streets proudly, but also with fear, knowing that if they stepped out of line, the Hero Enforcement Regiment would come down on them hard. 𝗬𝗧𝗪𝗧 was seated at a desk at the NYC Public Safety Answering Center, the dispatch center for the NYPD and FDNY, dressed in an NYPD uniform at one of the desks. She swung around to face the viewers. Hi there, everybody, it's 𝗬𝗧𝗪𝗧, and I'm here to give you a few facts about police corruption and misconduct. Police misconduct can take many forms, such as bribing or lobbying politicians to pass laws that give officers excessive authority, sexual misconduct, selective enforcement of laws, which often ties into racial discrimination, and noble cause corruption. In other words, believing that good outcomes justify bad behavior. Corruption is a type of misconduct that can take its own forms, such as officers receiving free drinks, meals, or other gratuities, whether intentionally or unintentionally, just because of their status, taking bribes from suspects to overlook crimes, stealing from suspects or victims, lying to protect oneself or other officers in a court of law, planting evidence on suspects, or canceling traffic tickets as a favor to friends and family of other officers. In certain cases, officers may share a blue code of silence, meaning that they won't turn in other officers for misconduct. Most cities have internal affairs divisions charged with investigating police misconduct and corruption. Though there have been a few instances of internal affairs hiding individual and departmental corruption, fraud, abuse, and waste, whether by individual officers or groups of officers. Misconduct is directly related to the personality and education level of an officer as well as the culture of an individual department, and may be fostered through psychological, sociological, and anthropological paradigms. In certain countries, police misconduct and corruption is rampant. In Russia, for example, officers have been hired as private security as a side job by businessmen and the Russian mafia, leading to conflicts of interest as business and political rivals are either jailed on trumped-up charges or kidnapped for ransom. Russian police have also committed violence and intimidation against journalists and whistleblowers, and it is widely believed that the FSB, the successor of the Soviet KGB, has been instrumental in using the police as foot soldiers.